the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, hello and a very good evening to you, and a very happy St Patrick's Day to boot. I hope you've enjoyed it. I understand the pubs were open quite early this morning. Quite a lot of devastation on the way into work this evening. But listen, I hope you had a really, really good day. Coming up on this programme at midnight, of course, it is your chance to talk back. So it's a full hour of phone-in, just you and me on the phones, chatting. And what I want to talk to you about at midnight is NHS dentistry. NHS dentistry no longer exists for millions of Britons, and radical solutions are needed to address the shameful collapse of what should be an essential public service. Now, I know a little bit about this because Saturday, my lovely Saturday, I'd done all the admin and stuff that I had to do, so I had a clear weekend, and I get a phone call from my boy who is suffering terrible tooth pain, and at the age of 27, of course, he still needs his mum to sort out, of course. I mean, I've no problem with that. So anyway, we ended up in the end calling NHS 111. It's a good thing for you to know if you didn't know this, because they do help out with dental pain. So you phone 111, they go through all the rigmarole, all the questions and all of that, and then they contact an NHS dentist sort of in your area. You've got to be prepared to almost go anywhere. And then we got a phone call from that dentist in about 10-15 minutes, and we had an appointment within 2 hours. And we knew that what he needed was antibiotics. They wouldn't give them out at the pharmacy because they don't give them out for dental pain at pharmacies. I don't quite understand that, and that's got to change, but they don't do that. But NHS 111 was really, really helpful, I have to be honest with you. And the dentist, we got him to this dentist in God knows where, and it wasn't a dentist I'd want to be treated at, but it was there, and it was only an NHS fee, and he got his antibiotics. So all's well that ends well. But why is it always a weekend? Why does toothache always come at the weekend? Why do children always get ill at the weekend? I've never understood that. But anyway, 18 million adults and children currently can no longer obtain an NHS dental appointment. 18 million can no longer get an NHS dentist. And forget going private. I mean, I have to go private. There's no NHS dentist in my area. Oh my God. The cost of it is absolutely ridiculous. Almost anything that I've got to have done, it is up to £1,000. It's £1,000, right? It's ridiculous. It's so expensive. So I do understand the crisis that's going on with NHS dentistry. People resorting to pulling their own teeth. Bob Mortimer, famously, the comedian, famously operates on his own teeth. Not a joke. True. So I want to speak to you about this, and I want to know about the misery of toothache. I want to know what you've had to do. Have you been able to find a dentist? What do you do for your children? Can you get your children into an NHS dentist? The levels of dental hygiene issues in children are unbelievable. Tooth curling, if you excuse the expression. So we'll discuss that at midnight. I'd love to hear from you, your experiences of dental pain, what you've had to go through, what you've had to do. And do you think that the NHS should really embrace dentistry properly? It used to be free. It used to be part of the same organisation as the NHS we know today. And then it was Attlee that started to charge in 1951, I think, and started those charges, and it was to help towards a war effort. But anyway, enough of the history. I want to hear what's going on with you today, what's happened with you today. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. You can also message me by putting the word talk and then your message to 87222. Before that, we have Phil Dave. He's going to be here in the studio talking us through the newspapers for Tuesday. And then we've got Ryan Harris, our journalist and broadcaster in California, taking us through some really weird news, as if America needs any more weird news than is currently going on. And Alex Three Lines Irons will also be here, TalkSport presenter and producer, to talk us through some of the weekend sport. I believe that Newcastle had a very good weekend. So we'll be discussing that in a while as well. But first, Work and Pensions Secretary Liz Kendall today has pledged to ensure trust and fairness ahead of the expected cuts to the benefit systems to be announced tomorrow. Now, we discussed this last week, didn't we, what those cuts were going to look like. We don't know yet until that paper comes out tomorrow, but there'll be more to discuss, I'm sure. Well, some of the most loyal Labour MPs are criticising the plans, calling it cruel and betraying Labour principles. So there's already infighting within Labour. Also, the right is facing its own battles, whether it's reforms, seismic events from last week, or the Conservative plots to already oust Kemi. Kemi Badenoch is on her way out. What is going on with our political parties? I mean, do we have the politicians we deserve? To answer this and other questions, I hope, is Michael Mockbacker, who's Associate Editor at The Telegraph. A very good evening to you, Michael. I mean, look, I look at American politics at the moment and ours don't seem that bad. But then if you just concentrate on British politics, it's not that good either.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, clearly, we're in a chaotic situation at the moment. Labour came in with this huge majority, but on a low share of the vote. Their support's fallen dramatically. They're now trying to already, after however many months it is, 8-9 months, they're trying to sort of reinvent themselves. Started on one course, now trying to course correct, using Ukraine and Trump as a reason for doing so. The Tories, Kemi Badenoch hasn't managed to establish herself since the autumn. And Reform obviously has had this remorseless surge, but now they've had last week the huge row with Rupert Lowe. Will he go off and form his own party? What's going to happen in that regard? Yeah, so it's a very confused situation, and heading towards the May local elections, which are a big test particularly for Reform. But they'll sort of, because what that'll do is you've got the local elections in May. You've also got the likely Runcorn by-election probably around the same time. There'll be huge expectations on Reform to do incredibly well, make huge gains. If they don't make those huge gains, the bubble's likely to burst for Reform. It's a really sort of high, and if they do make the huge gain, the narrative will continue. So it's very much a sort of very high-risk position for Farage, but the next few months will really tell where things are moving in that direction.
You see, I really feel sorry for the voting public, because I don't know what they would be voting for in those local elections. Thankfully, we don't have them here in London, but it's hard to know. I mean, Labour, a lot of people, and I do a phone in every night, they don't know who Labour is anymore. They certainly have got no idea. I don't even think the Tories know who they are anymore. And so this is why Reform, with its clear, if you like, but very small message, is gaining popularity. I think that we don't understand what's going on right now, and it will be the fault of Labour and the Tories if Reform does well, because who are they?
You're right. With Labour, it's particularly confused because from July onward, there was one sort of narrative. They said there's this huge gap in the budget. We need to increase taxes, more left-wing programme, big pay awards. And now they're saying we've got the most sort of shocking thing from popular with the public, shocking for Labour Party's core supports. We're increasing defence spending and cutting foreign aid. We're now going to cut welfare. All policies which will play well with the Northern Wall, with the Red Wall, not policies which will play well with the average Labour activist. For the Tories, the problem is Kemi Badenoch came in. She's got a strategy, and the strategy was it'll all be mood music. The next election won't be for another 4.5 years. So I've got time, mood music, but then eventually come out with actual policies sometime further down the road. But probably partly because of Farage and him pulling all the oxygen out of the room and the rise of reform. That mood music hasn't played. I mean, she hasn't had the cut through. So what you've seen instead, no policies and no cut through for the sort of grander narrative she was trying to push. So where did that leave the Tories? They haven't cut through. The Labour's gone in one trajectory, then gone in another trajectory. Reform therefore had its opportunity, particularly because immigration is obviously the issue. But now Reform's managing to rip itself apart over rows and Elon Musk money and direction and a fallout between Farage and other people in the party, which is not new for Reform and Farage. If you look at his history, there's been endless fallout ever since. If you remember back in 2004, Robert Kilroy-Silk, who was seen as the great hope of UKIP that then was, and I don't know how long it took, but within months there were huge ructions between him and Nigel Farage, and he left and set up his new party. And that sort of history has continued throughout Nigel's various endeavours.
I mean, let's have a look at Kemi Badenoch, because a lot of people, you know, her speech at the Tory party conference was really quite a firebrand. I thought she wasn't the best, but of those that were left, she seemed to cut through more. It was interesting. At least she was interesting. She wasn't, you know, male and pale. You know, there might have been some interest, but she's just seems to have been so flat since then. She hasn't landed any decent punches, and she's had the opportunity. I mean, let's face it, you know, I mean, there's been so much with this Labour government and such unpopularity after what they did when they first got in over winter fuel, that you would have imagined that she would have been able to really stand up and be counted, but nothing.
She hasn't performed well at Prime Minister's questions. To be fair, I don't know how much cut through that has with the public. Margaret Thatcher famously didn't perform well at Prime Minister's questions when the Tories were in opposition. She's timed things oddly. Tomorrow, the Tories are making a big policy announcement tomorrow. I think the embargo is lifted in 15 minutes, but they're making a big announcement on net zero tomorrow, which will sort of separate Tory policy from Labour policy on that. But on very few issues have they actually demarcated themselves and said, we stand on this side, the Tories stand, Labour stand on that side. And where they've tried to do it, such as winter fuel, the Tories don't have credibility. I mean, the Tories backing a universal benefit when Labour's cutting it, I mean, it doesn't really have much credibility. No one really believes that there are many Tory MPs who passionately believe in a universal winter fuel allowance.
Surely, though, it would be, I mean, I don't know whether it's another level of suicide. I don't even know with the Tories now, but and yet another leader. If they did go there, I mean, they're becoming a laughing stock. I mean, it is just ridiculous.
Changing leader now would look ludicrous.
Yeah,
they went through so many leaders. The shortest serving Prime Minister in history, Liz Truss. I mean, chucking out another Tory leader after six, seven months would look awful. I mean, they've got to stick with Kemi. Maybe a few years down the road, if you remember back when, after the 2001 election, Ian Duncan Smith became leader of the Tory party. And I think he was in there for 2 years or something. And then he was pushed out.
Even though he was a disaster for them. Yeah.
Yeah, by Michael Howard. But it's all moving much more quickly these days. And I mean, it's clearly would be ludicrous for them to try and remove Kemi now at this stage. They've got to give her a good go. They've got to give her a good chance. They've got to give her a good go.
But there are whispers that they're looking to replace her now.
Undoubtedly there are, yep. I think the rules don't allow an confidence vote for 1 year after the last leader's been elected. So she's got a breathing space of another 6 months or so. But undoubtedly, there are whispers, and Tory MPs, as we've seen over the last few years, they're a conniving bunch.
Oh, yeah.
So that summer plotting goes without saying.
Now, let's turn our attention to Labour and this paper that's coming out tomorrow explaining more about these cuts. I mean, look, I think everybody can accept that the welfare bill is is out of control, right? And I think even the leftist, left-leaning left Labour would accept that it's out of control. But this just looks like the politics of meanness again. This looks like the winter fuel allowance on steroids. This doesn't look like a Labour government. And this is the problem that Labour has at the moment, is who are they when they look like they're always attacking the vulnerable and the poor? That's not what they were signed up to do.
They've got a problem. Clearly, disability benefits and benefits have gone through the roof, especially since COVID and lockdown. The amount of worklessness has gone up and people on long-term disabilities increased dramatically. And clearly, some of these changes will resonate with the vote they're trying to avoid, either keep or avoid going to reform. So some of their voters in those northern areas, these policies will resonate with. But the problem for them is the people knocking on doors last July, the Labour activists, most certainly did not campaign in order to cut benefits and cut foreign aid. So these policies are not popular with their base. They're not popular with Labour MPs. Can Starmer get this through? Undoubtedly he can. I mean, he's got over 400 Labour MPs. Maybe they said 80 people were thinking of rebelling, 80 won't rebel. Starmer's had a very robust approach to rebels. Those who opposed the winter fuel allowance lost the whip, were chucked out. These people will know, if you're a newly elected Labour MP, you're hoping to be there for 15, 20 years, are you really going to wreck your career by voting against this measure? When the whips will probably say, OK, if you can't vote for this, you can claim you've got some urgent constituency business, you'll be allowed not to turn up on the day. Very few MPs will actually go there. And the alternative is turning up and voting against the government, and they'll lose the whip.
Well, we saw that with the winter fuel allowance as well, didn't we?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We won't get many people doing that. There'll be others who are just told you don't need to bother turning up, blah, blah. But the actual size of the rebellion in the end won't be that large. But the question...
But again, that speaks to the electorate, doesn't it? That people will be squirming out of placing these votes. They're not brave enough. They're not working for us. They're working for themselves. And at the moment, Reform is managing to persuade people, look, the other two parties have let you down. You've flip-flopped between those two for years now. We're something new. You know, we're different. It's the Trump effect.
That's the narrative. We're different. We're a new, fresh face. Nigel Farage is clearly an absolute genius at communication. He manages to connect with the public. Yeah. That's the difference. That's why perhaps this Rupert Lowe row is a problem for them, because it looks like they're another sort of bunch of rats in the sack. Just like the Tories fall out, this party is also fighting and at each other's throats all the time. You're right there. Yeah. The slightly high-minded view of MPs should represent their constituents. Of course they should. But the whip's response to that will be, in both the large parties, Tory and Labour, will be, why were you elected? It wasn't because you're called whatever, Joe Smith. It's because there was Labour after your name. So the whip's line to the MPs are, you're only here because you had the party support. So now do what the party says. So that'll be their line to their MPs. Don't be arrogant. Don't think you're here because you're particularly loved in Sheffield Central. You're here because we got you here. And that'll be what the whips will endlessly be reminding their MPs. And saying, you've got to vote.
This, Michael, is what's going to kill democracy. Just looking at the state of this. Listen, if you were a betting man, I don't know if you are or not, the upcoming elections, do you think it's all going to go Reform's way? I can't see the Tories picking up much.
I think the Reform will do well. I suspect if you look at past votes with Farage, his parties have nearly always underperformed. 2024 was the exception. They did well obviously in all the proportional representation elections for the European Parliament, but they're on one issue. But that's Farage's problem. It's absolutely vital for him to break through in these elections, to have that success. If he doesn't win the Runcorn by-election, does well, picks up lots of councillors, but not as many as people expected, people like us will be having a chat afterwards saying, oh, well, that all hype. Is he really going to break through? Has the mould of British politics broken, as the SDP talked about in 1982? It turned out not at all,
No.
but it'll be all that. So that'll be the narrative. He really has to have an outstanding result to continue this narrative of an upward curve. He's now on track. We're living in a proper three-party Britain, and he could win the next general election. That's to achieve, for that narrative to continue, he needs to do exceptionally well at these elections.
Well, let's talk again after the elections. It's been wonderful talking to you, Michael. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciated it. That's Michael Mockbacher there, who's Associate Editor at The Telegraph. Coming up, we're going to be looking at what's going on in sport, and I'm going to be telling you about what's in the phone-in.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a good evening to you. So, how do we stop the rot? How do we stop people suffering with dental pain? The most recent data suggests that around 18 million adults and children in England can no longer obtain an NHS dental appointment. 18 million of you can't get an appointment. In some areas, there are no NHS dentists at all. And to go private, well, it's not affordable. It really isn't. It's so expensive. I mean, just going in to have a rudimentary checkup in my dentist surgery, I think is 80 quid. And let alone if anything has to be done. I mean, you're looking at 1,000 is not unusual. Yeah, if you need a filling and you want a white filling, or you need to replace a bridge or something, 1,200, 1,300, 1,400, 1,600 pounds. I mean, who's got that sort of money lying around? So what do you do? A lot of people live in pain. Other people, their children, live in pain because they can't get a dentist appointment. You've also got the situation where people are taking out their own teeth. They're dealing with it themselves. And if you think you can go to the pharmacy, which I thought you could, to get antibiotics, which you can if you've got a sore throat or you've got an earache, don't go in there and tell them you need it for dental pain, because they're not allowed to prescribe for dental pain. Why? That just seems to be absolutely bonkers. So if you're going in and you need antibiotics for dental pain, I suggest you tell them that you've got something else. I don't know what, because they need to check, but it's just ridiculous. So the only way you can do it is by going to a dentist, which you can't find. But there are always, apparently, I did not know this, emergency dentist appointments, and you get those by phoning 111. And I have to say, 111 was really helpful. They were really good. And they said, look, it would be 2 hours before a dentist calls you. It was about 10-15 minutes, and we had an appointment within 2 hours on a Saturday, because dental pain always happens at the weekend, as we know. So you can get there. And when you're there, it only costs the NHS amount of money, so £26.80 for that appointment, which is a great deal cheaper than if my dentist had been opened and I'd taken him to that dentist to get a prescription for antibiotics. So what do you do? How do you do it? And why is it that so many children now have rotten teeth? Is it the diet they're on? Is it the drinks they're drinking? Is it an abject failure by parents to teach children to brush their teeth? What is it that's going on that sees so many children between the ages of 4 and 9 end up in hospital to have treatments? And the other side effect of there not being NHS dentists available is that more and more mouth cancers are now being discovered too late to save people's lives. Whereas if you regularly go to the dentist every 6 months or every year and you have anything wrong, might be mouth cancer, then your dentist will spot it first. The people who don't go to dentists, of course, it's not being spotted until it's way, way too late. Also, poor dentistry can lead to heart attacks. It can lead to bacteria getting into other parts of your body. It can lead to all sorts of things, which ends up costing the NHS way more than it would have cost to have those 18 million people regularly go to a dentist for a checkup. So NHS dentistry is a disaster. It's third world. It really is. Horrendous. And it's now becoming the preserve of the wealthy. So only if you can afford it now, you can afford that £1,000. Every time I go in, I think, oh, I've got to think about £1,000 because I don't know what it's going to cost. It's a miracle if I walk out of there without having to hand over £1,000 or something similar. My teeth aren't even that bad. So how do you do it? What do you do? What's it like in your area? Are there any dentists? Perhaps there aren't any in your area. There are many areas that I've got written down here that don't have dentists at all, NHS dentists at all. And of course, dentists don't want to do NHS dentistry because they're so rich. You never see a poor dentist. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good evening to you. This is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And joining me now is Alex, Three Lions Irons, Talk Sport presenter and producer. Hello, Alex. See?
Hello. How are you? I'm doing it now.
No, you're doing it. I deliberately didn't talk to you like I talked to my dog.
I know you didn't, so I thought I'd do it instead.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I've pinged my hamstring, but apart from that, I'm doing all right.
How'd you do that?
I was playing football earlier, and I just stretched out a little bit. So I'm all red, as you can probably see on the camera. I've been running around.
Is bad for you. Just so you know that. It's dangerous and it's bad for you.
So if anyone knows a dentist that also on the side works on massaging hamstrings, I'd be very, very appreciative if you could send them my way.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do.
Thank you.
Listen, there won't be any dentists working in Newcastle, I think, at the moment, because they'll all be celebrating still.
Well, there'll be some gritted teeth in Liverpool, that's for sure, because Newcastle secured their first ever domestic trophy. That's not quite true. It's their first domestic trophy for 70 years and ended a wait for a major prize stretching back to 1969 with a deserved Carabao Cup final win over Liverpool at Wembley on Sunday. The Toon Army were sent into ecstasy as goals either side of half-time by Dan Burn, he grew up in Blyth, which isn't too far away from Newcastle, and Alexander Isak, who's Swedish and not from the northeast at all. They put them on course for a triumph that would lead to legendary status on Tyneside for manager Eddie Howe and his players. I went to St James's Park, the home of Newcastle United, a couple of weeks ago, and there is a statue of Alan Shearer and there's a statue of Sir Bobby Robson, and I can guarantee you now there's going to be a lot more statues around St James's Park in the not-too-distant future, because this team is going to go down into folklore for that side.
I mean, you wouldn't know they'd won for how quiet they've been about it.
I've seen Anton Deck crying in the stadium. I've seen friends of mine who are Newcastle fans crying on social media. Others who have said that they still can't believe it. And you know, their owners are the Saudi government, and you can say what you want about them to some extent in this country. You know, the fact that their fans have waited for so long for any piece of silverware, they're probably the most deserving fans in football to have won something, because they've been through thick and thin with this team. They've been through hell and back over the past. You know, it wasn't that long ago they were under the ownership of Mike Ashley, who owns Sports Direct, and they were going through hell with him. They've been relegated a couple of times. He wasn't buying any players. Fans are being mistreated by the ownership at Newcastle. He sold the club, and they've gone on leaps and bounds since then. And yes, they are one of the richest clubs in football now because of that. But it just shows to their, you know, some of these fans who have been, you know, a lot of these fans, for Newcastle fans, hadn't seen them win anything.
Yeah.
And the fact that they've now won something. I'm a Fulham fan, and I've never seen Fulham win anything apart from the Championship final twice, and one of them was at home because COVID shut all the stadiums. I've never seen my team win a major trophy, but I can celebrate with Newcastle fans for the fact that they finally won one in their lifetime, and I'm proud of them for that. And it's nice to see a team that's not Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal or Liverpool actually win something.
Not good for Liverpool, though.
No, they've had a horrible week over the past couple of weeks. They went out of the Champions League on penalties thanks to PSG, another team owned by a Middle East government, and now they're out of they were knocked out of the Carabao Cup thanks to Liverpool. There was a 2-1 result for Federico Chiesa. He's come on and scored in injury time, and he hasn't had a lot of minutes either, so maybe it's him coming out and saying, hey, I'm actually a decent player, play me a bit more, please. But yeah, not a great week for them at all. It's the fact that they are already so far ahead in the Premier League. Yes, Arsenal beat Chelsea on the weekend, but they're still 12 points ahead of them. I think Liverpool fans can rest assured that they'll have silverware at the end of the season, and it won't be too long until we see them lifting the Premier League trophy. But yeah, it hasn't been a good week for them.
Neither has it been a good time for Wales in the Six Nations.
No, it hasn't. It's not just a drubbing. They haven't won in 17 games. It says 17 test games, which is a pretty horrible run to be on the end of. And it feels like Welsh rugby has definitely hit rock bottom. They lost 68-14 to England in Cardiff at the Principality Stadium, which, even as someone who's English, I've just gone, really? I've now got friends who are Welsh, and I've not even spoken to them about a rugby because I don't want to remind them of how horrible it's been for them. It was their heaviest defeat in Wales, their biggest home or away loss in the Six Nations, and the most points conceded against England, and confirmed a second successive wooden spoon. So, yeah, not the best of times to be a Wales Rugby Union fan.
What's happened to Wales?
It just feels like it's been a lack of confidence. The fact that, maybe they haven't really had the right management behind him. The captain, Alan Wyn-Jones, says that change needs to be seismic, and another ex-Wales skipper in Gwen Jones has told the WRU that they should not waste this crisis and must oversee radical alterations. So it feels like, they had not the right coaches come in. It's been left to their head coach, or the interim head coach, which is Matt Sherratt, to say that there needs to be a Welsh rugby reset and change to the foundations of the game. They've just been, Wales has been one of the rugby greats for such a long time. Maybe they just took the foot off the gas and they're bringing in people who aren't particularly the right people for the job, and it's been showing on the pitch that it's not really, the WRU maybe does need a bit of a shake-up to take them back to the heights to where they were not that long ago, it seems.
I mean, they really used to be the team to beat. I mean, they were just, terrifying, but not anymore. Boxing is not out for the count.
Yeah, so the International Olympic Committee Executive Board has recommended that boxing should be included at the 2028 Games in LA. The sport was initially not part of the programme when it was announced in 2022, but last month World Boxing was given provisional recognition as the sport's international governing body. The recommendation will still need to be approved by the IOC at this week's session in Greece, but outgoing IOC President Thomas Bach expects it to be given the green light. Essentially, we had a lot of talk of, especially over the summer, of boxing in the Olympics. There was talk of it not taking place in LA in 3 years' time because there wasn't really seen to be a governing body of boxing, and to be a part of the Olympics, you have to have a governing body, because there's been a lot of fractions in boxing. Maybe the Olympics didn't really want to have them involved. That's now changed, so we will see boxing at the Olympics in 2028. And I quite enjoyed watching the boxing over the summer period when the Olympics are on. I enjoy it at the best of times, but it's always quite nice to see when the amateurs as well get a go. I love seeing the little red and blue helmets that they've got to wear. It's nice to see that they're taking their safety into precaution, and the professionals maybe not so much. But
did they ever make a decision though on allowing trans boxers to fight against women?
I'm not aware of anything that happened after what happened in the Olympics with the women's boxing. As far as I'm aware, she wasn't trans anyway, but I don't know.
There were two boxers. One was intersex and one was, I believe, trans.
Yeah, I've not heard anything about the Olympic body saying that they were going to ban anything. The IBA banned those two fighters, Algeria's Amin Khalif and Taiwan's Ling Wu Ting. They were banned through the 2023 World Championship, saying they had failed gender eligibility tests, but the IOC allowed them to compete and both won gold medals in their weight classes. There hasn't been anything else said about that, and I don't think there will be in due course. But that might change in the run up to the Olympics in the next couple of years.
I'm just wondering, really, because of Trump's political moves against the transgender community, and whether that will play into LA and to the 28 Olympics.
It might. I don't know. It's so far away in political aspects. We don't know what's going to be happening in 3 years' time. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Let alone
3 hours' time.
Exactly.
We don't know what's going to happen. What's this about a club giving a minute's silence for somebody who actually wasn't dead?
Yeah, so this is a bit of a funny one. A Bulgarian top-flight football club has apologised for holding a minute's silence for a former player, only to discover that he is still alive. So Arda Kadzali mourned Petko Ganchev before Sunday's league game with Levski Sofia, with both teams lining up in the centre circle with their heads bound in Ganchev's honour. However, before the game had ended, Arda posted on their Facebook page saying they had been misinformed. The management of PFC Arda would like to express a huge apology to the former Arda player Petko Ganchev and his relatives after the club received wrong information about his death, the club wrote. We wish Petko Ganchev many more years of good health and to enjoy the success of Arda. So it's nice to see that they've tracked back, but
but it reminds me of that Monty Python. Is it the Life of Brian, where they bring out your dad and he goes, "I'm not dead yet." But anyway,
it's exactly like that.
Listen, Alex, thank you very much indeed. Alex Three Lines Irons, TalkSport presenter and producer. Stay where you are. We've got some weird news coming out of the US next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a good evening to you. Just to remind you, Phil Dave will be here in the studio in about 15 minutes' time to go through Tuesday's newspapers. But first, Ryan Harris is joining us now, I'm thrilled to say, journalist and broadcaster in California, with some weird news. And I just thought there's so much weird news coming out of America at the moment. I suspect you didn't have to scratch around too much.
You know, it's funny you should say that, because I was thinking exactly the same thing this morning as I was mentally gearing up to join you today, Petrie. Every day is a weird news day, but this week, because of the different resources I had, I've limited it all to weird animal news.
Oh, good, because weird human news would be just too triggering at the moment, I guess. Yeah. Talk to me about alligators. So there's two alligator stories here, and there's one in Florida. This is horrifying.
Oh, they're both in Florida.
Okay.
And you know, it's funny, I found a lot of the weird news, and not surprising this week, came out of Florida, just because that's how it usually goes. I mean, you've heard the term Florida man, as in a Florida man, and you know the rest of the headline there. But Petrie, in this case, a fellow by the name of Paul Quinn just wanted a little fresh air in his Fort Myers, Florida home, but instead he got the unwanted visitor, an alligator, in his kitchen. Now, to me, this one looked a little bit on the small side at a mere 8 feet long. That's still a pretty good sized gator with big teeth. And it appears the curious creature broke through the screen door and made himself comfortable in Mr. Quinn's kitchen. So, of course, the Floridian knew exactly what to do because they're all raised around wildlife like alligators. He called a trapper who came over with the standard catch pole and rope loop, which he used to wrangle and drag the unhappy gator outside while Mr. Quinn took video of the entire thing. So there's video online of the kitchen gator wrangling. Then there's the other from a senior community in Bradenton, Florida, where an elderly woman just wanted her pizza delivered. Only the delivery driver was blocked by another 8-foot gator. Police had been called because of the gator sighting in the community. So there's some pretty decent body cam video, which struck me funny because it first shows the police officer telling this poor little old lady repeatedly to go back into her house because the gator was very close to where she was. And she was vehemently inquiring about her pizza. So apparently she was as hungry as the alligator, and the officer told her as a result he would bring the pizza around to the back door for her. Now, eventually that video shows the police officer handing the woman the pizza and explaining he's not...
Oh, no. What's happened to Ryan? I'm just wondering if the gator wanted to eat the old woman or the pizza. Might be sophisticated. There might be sophisticated alligators. Yeah, the Florida police officer ended up delivering a pizza to a resident's back door after the delivery driver arrived to find an 8-foot gator in the driveway. This is in Bradenton. They shared body cam footage on social media showing the scene that unfolded when an officer was called out about a large alligator in the neighbourhood. I mean, look, for me, it's the alligator in the kitchen that would upset me. I left my back door open a few days ago and found a fox in the living room. So, but they're very scaredy. But he actually walked in. Obviously decided, but it wasn't a gator. So I think I'm happier with a nervous fox that will run away as soon as you look at it. But an alligator in the kitchen, no. So 2 gator stories there. We are trying to get Ryan back. Have we got him back yet? No. His microphone is now muted. This is going well, isn't it? I love it when a plan comes together. Let me tell you a little bit. I don't want to blow the stories, or the other stories that I've got in front of me. I want Ryan to tell me these stories because I've got all of his stories in front of me. But let's start with this one while we're waiting to get him back. A man was found with a live turtle concealed in his pants by the TSA at a New Jersey airport. The turtle was detected on Friday after a body scanner alarm went off at Newark Liberty International Airport. An officer then conducted a pat-down to the man and determined there was something concealed in the groin area of his pants. That poor turtle. When questioned further, the man reached into his pants and pulled out the turtle, which was about so many jokes, 5 inches long. See, there's jokes here, folks. I think you can fill them in yourself. And wrapped in a small blue towel. He said it was a red ear slider turtle, a species that is popular as a pet. The man, whose name was not released, was escorted from the checkpoint area by Port Authority police and ended up missing his flight. The turtle was confiscated, and it's not clear if the turtle was the man's pet or why he had it in his pants. Is it just me with that, or how many rude jokes went through your mind when I was telling you about that? So that is a turtle. I don't think we're going to get Ryan back, are we? We're trying. Oh, it's taking a long time. Crikey. Right, so that's a turtle. The world's oldest llama enjoys comforting chronically ill children in North Carolina. A buck-toothed llama I do like a llama that spends his days comforting chronically ill children at a North Carolina camp founded by NASCAR royalty, has been crowned the world's oldest llama in captivity. He's 27 years old and more than 27 years and more than 250 days. The selfie and snuggle-loving llama called White Top dethroned Dalai Lama. That is such a good name for a llama. Come on, Dalai Lama. I wish I'd thought of that. The Guinness World Records announced last week Dali lived on a ranch in Albuquerque and was announced as the oldest in 2023, shortly after his 27th birthday. White Top was donated to the Victory Junction camp in 2006. Oh, we've got Ryan. We've got Ryan back now on the phone. Ryan, I don't know what happened there. It's a conspiracy. I'm just going through the story about the world's oldest llama and absolutely loved that somebody called a llama the Dalai Lama.
You know, it's funny because that's the part that stuck out to me as well.
I love that
Petrie,
so much. I wish I'd thought of it. Yeah. I wish I'd thought of that.
Yeah, and having seen the actual Dalai Lama in person twice, which is a huge privilege, you know, that one really, really struck me. But I don't know what the average lifespan is for a llama in captivity. 27 years seems a long time. White Top pushing 28, but more importantly, you know, this camp in North Carolina was founded by NASCAR driver Kyle Petty, who's the son of legendary driver Richard Petty, and Kyle lost his son Adam in a crash during a practice for a race. You know, they're a family of drivers, and so he started this camp, and these kids have all kinds of conditions, cancer and spina bifida and, you know, otherwise bound to wheelchairs, and White Top is there ready to get up close to them and take pictures with them and just make them feel better. And so, you know, let's hope he lives to be 127. That is
a really lovely story. This one I love as well, I have to say. A dog shoots a man in bed. So many questions about the gun being in the bed in the first place, but talk me through this story.
Well, Petrie, I'm sure you're familiar with the old song that starts out, long distance information, get me Memphis, Tennessee. And that's where we find the story of the dog who just wanted some affection from his owner. Now, this particular man, according to police, was in bed with his girlfriend asleep when he was awakened with a start, not just by his pit bull jumping on the bed, which would be enough to wake me up, but by a shot ringing out from the gun that the pooch had stepped on. Now, some of us, you know, we've been known to sleep with guns under our pillows. I personally have guns in the house. They are not only locked up, but the chambers are open, which makes them impossible to fire while they're in the house. So I'm all about gun safety. But apparently the dog named Oreo got his paw stuck in the little loop, the trigger guard there, and it caused the gun to go off and fire a shot. Fortunately, the man was only grazed in the thigh. You can save your jokes on that one as well. You know, I think of the old American sitcom Get Smart, you know, missed it by that much. But it's definitely a reminder that you don't just leave guns lying around. I mean, even under the pillow, if the dog had stepped in the wrong place, the shot could have gone off and it would have been a lot worse. So
it struck me that it was just on the bed somewhere, this gun, loaded. I mean, why would you do that?
Well, it's Tennessee.
Okay. All right.
That's all I can say.
It's not the first time, though, that a dog has shot someone, though, in America, of course. I mean, it must happen fairly regularly. There's in 2018, a 51-year-old man from Iowa was shot in the leg by his pit bull Labrador mix. And in Kansas, 2 years ago, a German Shepherd dog shot and killed a 30-year-old man after it stepped on a hunting rifle.
Well, two observations there. Number one, you know, a lot of people argue that pit bulls are a dangerous breed, not because they are prone to shootings, and I'm a firm believer, I've been around a lot of pit bulls that are just the sweetest dogs ever. It's how they're trained. If they're trained to be mean, they will be mean. If they're trained to be nice, they will be nice. I mean, I think that's the same for a lot of dogs. And then the other is, of
It's
course,
the same for
you know,
people.
German. Yeah, exactly. It's about the people they're with. And German Shepherds are supposed to be guard dogs, so they're supposed to be protecting you from getting shot, not shooting you. So those are my just
I mean,
random.
I cannot believe that Americans still just leave their guns loaded lying around. I mean, you are asking for trouble and deserve it, frankly. So that's just the most stupid thing ever. Let's talk about this cat now. A cat's incredible reunion. Tell me about this.
Yeah, this one warms the cockles, as they say, as a cat that was thought to be lost in the devastating Palisades wildfire a couple of months ago is reunited with her owner. Now, unfortunately, 82-year-old Catherine Kiefer's Los Angeles home was destroyed by the Palisades fire, and like many people forced to evacuate quickly, she was unable to get back to the neighborhood to look for her cat, a Maine Coon named Aggie.
They're
Who was
beautiful.
gifted to Kiefer. They are beautiful cats. And Aggie was gifted to Kiefer during the COVID pandemic so she would have a companion when we were all isolated, especially the seniors were told to stay away from everybody. Now, Mrs. Kiefer had been at a doctor's appointment when the fire broke out. She couldn't get back home. Her children tried to find Aggie, who they say was fond of hiding. And that's sort of probably why they were unable to locate her before they were forced to leave the neighborhood and flee the flames themselves. Say that 3 times fast. The children say one thing their mother asked. The only thing their mother asked was, "Did you find Aggie?" Well, even though she was feared lost, Mrs. Kiefer held out hope. And then a few days ago, she got a call from the West Los Angeles Animal Shelter, which I have actually been to, if you ever want to hear that story, to let her know that Aggie was indeed alive.
Oh, I'm so glad. That is wonderful news. I mean, Maine Coons are big, lovely cats. I'm glad that they've been reunited. All right, coming up, it's the papers next. Thank you, Ryan.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, it is Petrie here with you, and with me is Phil Dave in the studio, broadcaster and editor here at Talk. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Just before we chat, we just had some breaking news through saying that the last Battle of Britain pilot, Paddy, or John Hemingway, has now died. So it's the very last Battle of Britain pilot. That really is the end of an era, isn't it? That extraordinary bravery. 105 years old.
I'd love to know what he makes of this day and age and whether or not he thought it was all worth it.
Yeah, I know. But also it's like, what was it that Churchill said? Never have so many owed so much to so few. And it is absolutely true.
Oh, for sure. I just wish that successive generations knew that.
Yes, I know. Last Battle of Britain pilot has died. Paddy John Hemingway at the age of 105. Right, Phil. Do you get fillings? Do you see what I did there?
Oh, because of dentistry.
Yeah.
No, I get that. Yeah.
No. So, stop the rot. 18 million adults and children in England can no longer obtain NHS dental appointments.
Well, I wish I could say I'm surprised, but I am horrified. Obviously, that number is absolutely extraordinary and horrendous. But at the same time, it's not really a shock, because all we've heard for so many years is how dentistry, particularly on the NHS, is just really struggling. And I don't really know sort of whether it boils down to mismanagement, whether it is a case of that there just aren't enough incentives for dentists to go into the NHS.
It is, I think, yeah.
I'm speaking as someone whose first cousin is his dentist. In other words, my first cousin is my is my dentist, and as a result of it, you know, I know that she's on. You know, it has to be a fairly decent income.
You never see a poor dentist.
Well, based on how much she charges me, allegedly, at
and you're a
mates
cousin.
rates.
Yeah,
you know, that tells me everything I need to know. But look, I don't blame her. It's the industry rate. You know, who wouldn't charge what they can? But it's more about, if that is the case, then I'm not surprised the NHS can't afford it. You know, and that's probably more what the powers that be need to just wake up and admit and say, look, dentistry costs an absolute fortune. The NHS just doesn't have the money to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it may come to that they abandon it altogether. But I mean, that would then cost the NHS much
it would,
more
but
money.
There are ways around it. You know, if you look at other NHS structures, if you like, in other countries where people are encouraged to pay a sort of like a health insurance premium each month, and then the government pays the rest of it, you know, if their care does spiral out of control. But it's kind of like a group policy insurance across the nation. And that's realistically what we should probably more be looking at here. As much as I understand that you could argue we technically already do pay for the NHS in all sorts of taxes and things like that, I think we all know that a lot of that tax money can be diverted to other things if needs be. And that's where I think the biggest problem lies. You know, if there's an actual dedicated insurance policy that everyone has to pay into, and everyone...
But we do. It's called national insurance.
It is called national insurance, but I think that we know that it's not quite in the right way.
Not quite ring-fenced well
I
enough.
mean, when we say national insurance, you know, some people may pay £100 here or there for the year. You know, there are some countries where you're actually charged £30, £40, £50 if it's high tier a month. And that's more what we should be looking at doing realistically. You know, I know that that's a chunk of money to a lot of people, but at the same time, you either want to be healthy or you don't. And if the country doesn't pay the correct amount of money to maintain its healthcare, then how can we possibly be surprised now when we see the ramifications of that?
I mean, that's a third of the population, isn't it, pretty much, that don't have access
Something's got to give. I believe it's a combination of waking up and realising that we don't pay enough for the NHS. And I think it's also, I mean, we pay it, a lot of money goes into the NHS, but it doesn't mean that we on a personal level pay enough for it. And furthermore, the mismanagement of the NHS. You know, at last, I've actually seen a policy that I can agree from the Labour government, the abolition of NHS England. Hallelujah! You know, that is superb news. More of that, please. Cut out middle management, focus on getting the NHS back on track, including the dental side of it as well.
Yeah, no, it absolutely needs to be. And there are some suggestions that says a much more radical approach. I don't see this as radical. A much more radical approach is needed long term, including looking at waiving tuition fees for dentistry students in exchange for a commitment to NHS work for a fixed term at the start of their careers.
I think that should be across the board. I've
too.
always thought,
that if we need doctors, pay for their the medical,
anything
degree.
that we're short on that is specialists, then I'd say I don't see why they shouldn't be heavily discounted.
Yeah.
You know, I know people would argue, they'd turn around and say, but hang on a second, you've just said on one hand that dentists get paid an absolute fortune. Doctors get a good wage as well. First and foremost, junior doctors don't get a good wage. Let's be very clear about that. Not for what they do, realistically, and the hours they have to work. And secondly, even if they were paid a decent wage, the truth is we need them. So there's got to be an incentive. But I agree, it must be on the terms and conditions that they commit to a number of years within the NHS.
I also think that some of the standards of dentistry in this country are woeful. And it's possibly because these NHS dentists are so, treasured that they can get away with being a bit shoddy. And there's one or two people who've contacted me saying pretty much that. But yeah, I mean, it is absolutely shocking. At the inception of the NHS in 1948, it was free at the point of need. That ended in 1951 when cash-strapped Attlee first introduced dental charges to help fund the Korean War effort, leading to the Health Minister, Nye Bevan...
There's a shock. We're paying for war.
...to resign in protest. So there you go, that's the history of that, which I think is fascinating. Anyway, let's have a look at the papers. And the Wall Street Journal, massive storm sweeps through the US, killing 33 people. I mean, there's it's just never-ending torture for the Americans at the moment, isn't it, with the weather, with the Palisades fires, and then you've got the floods, and now you've got the storms that are tearing up the several states in America.
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't think that anyone can be shocked that America has extreme weather, because for as long as I can remember, it's always had extreme weather. It certainly would appear as though that it seems to be making the headlines more and more, but I can't quite work out whether or not that's because the weather is getting a bit more severe, or whether or not it's a case of that there's just more...
Well, it seems that, I mean, from everything that I've read, that the weather is getting more severe. Apparently, when this was all happening and 33 people died, Donald Trump put up on Truth Social that he just won a golf match, which is nice.
Oh.
Who's president.
I suppose he can't time his winning, but at the same time, it probably would have been a bit more...
He might have been a little bit more circumspect.
I was just going to say, but I'm fairly sure that he could have chosen the time in which he posted it.
Yes, quite. And the rest of
I did enjoy the way people jump down my throat whenever I mention anything about Trump. It's fine.
Yeah, well... I mean, anybody who goes, oh, yeah, but you might have. And you go, no, he's the president now. He should be a bit more grown up. US news, eggs are so expensive that people are smuggling them in from Mexico.
Oh, well, I can understand that.
I mean, fentanyl now.
Mexico.
Thing of the past. Fentanyl, nobody wants fentanyl anymore. They want eggs.
Yeah. Is it getting it from Mexico? See,
very good. Yeah. Very good.
Right.
There's lots of very...
Please, you came up with a filling joke before. At least let me have one bad joke.
No, there's lots of funny sort of TikToks and Instagrams of people pretending to be egg dealers now. It's hilarious.
I want to know where critical mass is, because it's. I don't know if it's comforting that America goes through the same struggles that we do in the UK in terms of the cost of living, or whether or not it's...
I know this is bird flu. We haven't got that issue. I got loads of eggs. I gave my dogs 3 yesterday.
No, I know. But what I mean, we don't get me wrong. We have recently had egg problems in this country. It wasn't that long ago that I was seeing most supermarkets saying maximum 2 boxes per customer.
That was COVID, though, wasn't it?
No, I don't even think it was through COVID. It's certainly been more recent than that. The point is that whatever happens, eggs are just one example of it. And okay, yes, fair enough, it's because of avian flu. But my point is that with everything becoming so ridiculously expensive, when do we just turn around and say, enough? Enough is enough. Don't want to pay any more for all of this nonsense.
Well, you do. I mean, you just don't buy eggs, I guess.
People
in the
just
US.
steal them instead.
Well, yeah, or they smuggle them in.
Absolutely.
No longer is it a drugs issue across the Mexican border; it's eggs. But
it's interesting. I suppose it gives new definition to crack habit, really, doesn't it?
That's very good.
Thanks,
See,
yeah.
that was better.
Thanks.
That was a better joke. I liked that one very much. Apparently, also, the Trump administration has asked Denmark to send any spare eggs that they might have. Why Denmark, I don't know, but Denmark, and it's kind of like, aren't you talking about annexing Greenland? So forget it. We're not going to do you any favours. But the Canadians have come to the rescue, and they're sending Americans some eggs, which I think is very decent of them, given that Trump's also threatened to annex Canada. But there you go. He can do it all himself. Wary investors turn off autopilot as stocks stumble. For years, most people haven't touched investments, preferring to ride the stock market's ups and downs. Although this guy, Yoram Early, has decided he's had enough. 82 years old, and he's unloaded almost half his stock investments, fearful of the effect of the Trump economic agenda. Yes, it's not looking good in the stock markets, but, you know.
Which is surprising, because, of course, actually, when Trump first came back in, actually, the old markets were doing quite well, but now they are starting to hiccup a bit. So it goes to show that sort of it doesn't matter what side of the political fence you sit on, if the markets start going Pete Tong, heaven help all of us.
But he did once say that when Biden was in charge, that if any president oversees a fall in the stock market dramatic, they should resign. Except now. This is interesting. How to fix a pothole the British way. Brackley in England. That's where I went to school.
Is it?
Yeah. There you go. Has a pothole plague.
I think everywhere's got a pothole plague.
How has that made it onto the front page of the Wall Street Journal?
I know, that is peculiar, actually, because you can sort of understand.
Very strange.
Because I think that potholes were on the front page of one of the other papers this morning, but it's.
But the Wall Street Journal, though, talking about it.
No, I know that is very odd. I can't completely understand why Wall Street would cover it.
Residents near the town of Bicester put up a large. I bet they call it Bicester. But
of course.
Bicester put up a large billboard next to one particularly bad section of the road, welcoming drivers to Pothole World, claiming it was fun for the whole family.
It's Tuesday's Metro has got the pothole story on there.
I love that they've got that on the front page.
I can't understand why there isn't something a little more important going on in America that they have to talk about British roads.
Awful lot going on in America, but the Wall Street Journal has gone with a pothole problem in Bicester.
Let it be known, actually, that Wall Street Journal has the most extraordinary amount of stories on its front page. It's amazing there's even anything left to put inside the paper.
I know, with all the nibs down the left-hand side, it's always the same way, but it's one of our papers, so be nice.
What?
Wall Street Journal.
I'm not being unpleasant. I'm just saying I think it's amazing there's anything left.
I just wanted to warn you in case you started to, you know.
Well, I think the fact that at the very top corner it says News Corp is a bit of a giveaway. So
does it?
Yeah. Oh, don't worry, I know that.
Okay. Let's turn our attention now to the British papers and the Mirror. I've got in front of me. Don't punish the needy. Now, this is because on Tuesday, of course, we're going to see the details of the benefit cuts. And Labour is revolting.
I could have told you that.
Labour is revolting because they don't want to be the mean party, but also they have to accept, don't they, that cuts will have to happen.
Well, I wonder how long it would take before they say, look, we were left with a £20 billion black hole and we had to do what we have to do in order to save the money.
Surely they can't get away with that anymore.
Well, I'd like to think not. I mean, like, how much longer do you have to be in power before you stop blaming the previous government? Mind you, you said that, there are still people who blame Margaret Thatcher for certain things in this country. There are still people who blame Tony Blair for certain things in this country. So, do you know, it never really stops.
Yeah, and Biden's getting the blame for the stock market crash in America. So there you go. Don't punish the needy. Unions warn PM over plan to slash billions from benefits, but Labour insists cuts are needed and will be done fairly.
I guess it depends what one's definition of fair is, really. You see,
They're going to make them more difficult to get, I think, is one of the
well, I don't
suggestions.
personally disagree with. That's just me. But then I suppose I live quite a lucky life where I don't need to claim it.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, I do think that it is, from what I have seen, too easy I don't think it's easy as in that actually to claim the payments, but it is too easy to wind up in a system that means that we pay people to exist almost, if you like. Now, if you've got someone who genuinely has a need, I don't think anyone in their right mind would argue against a state that looks after people like that. But if you've got someone who's work shy because they earn more from benefits than going to work, that's a major problem.
But you have a danger with these things, like they did with the winter fuel allowances, throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because we were hearing from people, definitely on the phone-ins, are saying, I'm £1 over the limit and I'm losing £300 in it. So that's where it's a blunt instrument. And certainly last week when I was talking about benefits, I heard from a young lady who was bedbound, and she was sobbing down the phone because she was saying, look, I keep getting phone calls, although I'm signed off on PIP, I literally can't get out of bed, trying to bully me into work, and I don't know what's happening, I'm really scared. And so there are people who, that safety net that we have will fall through, and I think that is always the tragedy.
It is, but there are also people who fall through the net already. It doesn't make it right, of course it doesn't, but look, the problem is we're never going to get one size fits all. And unfortunately, that's just the way the system works in this country. It is a kind of like a one-size-fits-all, and it's half the downfall. But it's also, well, it's actually, I think it's more than half the downfall, to be honest. But it's the downfall of both sides of the fence. It's the downfall of those who genuinely need it versus those who just take the proverbial and take gross advantage of it.
And I also hear from people all the time as well, telling me that it's really actually very difficult to get PIP, and PIP it's on a scale. As it goes up to £9,000 a year, and it's not a payment that you have to be unemployed to get. You can be fully employed and still get a PIP payment, because it's not based on your income. It's not based on anything like that. It's based on what you might need in order to live your life. And a lot of people tell me just how incredibly difficult it is to get on to PIP.
And yet there are people, of course, who know how to cheat the system and to give the answers that they want to hear in order to get more money. So, I mean, I would say that now is the time where, obviously, where everyone is a bit obsessed with AI anyway, that we could probably start putting AI to some sort of good use to actually, if you like, analyse on almost a case-by-case basis, which wouldn't take too long if people wish to appeal those cases, the ruling by AI. They should be allowed to do so and have human intervention to review those cases. But surely AI has got to be a way of filtering out the masses, and in particular those who take gross advantage. There are also other considerations which might be those who are, say, for example, housebound, but maybe they are not necessarily physically in the sense that they can get up and walk around like you and I might take advantage, but maybe they are sort of able enough to maybe from home earn something in the way of an income. There are plenty of jobs now that can be done remotely. The pandemic has seen to that. So I would have thought that actually if the government wants to spend some half-decent money and actually for some good use, why not actually do it that a division of the Job Centre Plus site is dedicated to what jobs can be done from home and actually give people that sense of independence by earning their money. I'm not saying that there are people who don't already do that, if you like, but I would say that there should be some sort of ability for people who want to work.
It's got to be more intelligent, and it's got to be more focused.
It's got to be more tailored to this day and age.
Yeah, and there's also that a lot of people do want to work, but they're scared of coming off benefits because they will lose everything. And I was reading in the paper the other day an idea that I've been banging on about for years, just saying, well, then just keep people's details on record so they don't have to go through it all over again if they try work and it doesn't work because of their health, that they don't have to start at day dot again in getting their benefits, and that's now something under consideration now, which I think will make a hell of a difference to people, because the fear is you come off a stable income of benefits and it all goes wrong, and you've got rent to pay, you've got bills to pay, and suddenly there isn't
as much
money
as I
there.
understand that, I think that what people who are on benefits need to consider is that, and I think there are those who genuinely need it seem to be consciously aware of this. Those who just can't be bothered, couldn't give a hoot, and that's the problem, is that the benefits may be a stable income, but it's a stable income at the pleasure of taxpayers, and that is a massive problem.
No, I think the fear is real. I think if you've got a family and you've got rent to pay and you've got a landlord breathing down your neck, it is real.
Of course it is, but it's not their money.
So, no, but it's got to be made
It's the money
easier
they
for
live
them.
off of, there's a
It's got to be
difference.
made easier for them that if they do go back into work, that if it all falls apart again, they can pick up those benefits really quickly, and they don't have to wait 4 months to get back into the system. So I understand. I understand it. I'm not saying I support it particularly, but I'm saying that I can completely understand why people get stuck on benefits, because it's just safe. That safety net has become a sort of trap.
Mate, I don't blame the people who claim the benefits. I blame the system that allows them to either make it difficult at the wrong time of being difficult or easy at the wrong time to be easy.
Yeah, it needs an overhaul. Let's take a quick break. Phil and I'll be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, good to have you with us, and by us I mean me, Petrie, and Phil Dave is in the studio, going through Tuesday's newspapers, and the Times for Tuesday. Kemi Badenoch will warn today that the government's target of hitting net zero emissions by 2050 is a fantasy and can only be achieved with a serious drop in our living standards or by bankrupting us.
No kidding, basically.
Yeah. I don't think there's much to argue about.
I have to say that, curiously actually though, on the subject of her name, you were saying either Badenoch or Badenoch.
It's Badenoch, isn't it?
Well, it's actually Badenoch, and I tell you how I know this is because I remember she did an interview not long after she sort of rose to prominence, where she said, "There's nothing bad about my surname. It's Badenoch."
I shall remember that.
And actually that's stuck ever since.
Yeah.
But there you
Although
have it.
she is pretty bad at her job.
Oh no, that's why I think she still gets.
That's why I keep calling her.
I think that's why she
In
still
fact,
gets
I'm going to
Badenoch.
call her Badenoch
Yeah.
until she gets good at her game, and then I'll call her Goodenoch.
Well, quite. Look, I think on the whole net zero thing, as you rightly say, there's not very much to argue about that. It does feel as though constantly that there are members of Parliament, in particular that weasel. Oh, goodness me. I mean, that revolting creature, Ed Miliband. I mean, even just to say his name makes me cringe. The way that
He's a bit cringy.
Well, I mean, he just probably lives in his wonderful little castle, wherever the heck it may be, where he doesn't have to worry a jot about where his income comes from. And yet he's inflicting all of this misery on millions of Brits, not least of all the farmers, where we all know what's going on. It is so blatantly obvious that there is a land grab going on so they can shove solar farms there. And I just find it abhorrent. I really, really do.
I just think these decisions that they're making are fantasy. The idea that you know, they're going to ban the gas boilers and everybody's got to have a water pump. Well, people live in flats, right?
Yeah.
I mean, where the heck do you put one of these? Well, you can't even put one in most gardens, because the gardens, for example, in London aren't long enough. You've got to have a certain amount of distance and stuff. I don't know. I once saw a video on it, but it just doesn't make any sense.
And it's the one glove fits all policy.
Yeah.
You know, there's this. It actually sort of has affected me as well when it comes to net zero, because where I live, you have seen my
Lovely
abode.
pad.
Thank you.
Bachelor pad.
Well, where my flat is, it's a brand new flat. You know, it's a 2.5-year-old property, and as a result of it, planning permission now across the country is granted to these big developments on the condition that parking is cut to usually around 50% of the development's worth. So in other words,
you need a car where you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm a 17-minute walk away from the nearest train station. Yeah. You're absolutely right, I need a car. It's ridiculous. But there are a total of just over 100 properties where I am, and there's parking for 50 of them. And even then, you know, it's a case of that some properties qualify, some didn't, and mine was one of the ones that didn't qualify for it. The developers decided that they were going to give parking spaces to properties that had 2 beds, 2 baths and above. So in other words, if it's 3 beds, 2 baths, all that got it. But if it's 2 bed, 1 bath, or 1 bed, 1 bath, forget it. We don't qualify for it. Now, you'd be forgiven for thinking, all right, it's not a major deal, just park on a nearby road. The nearest free road to park on from where I am is a 10-minute walk. So how do I do shopping?
And presumably, because they've banned the parking, there's no parking permits.
There are no
available.
parking permits.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets even more ridiculous. This is all, by the way, in the name of net zero, by the way. Let's not forget this. This is all in the name of trying to cut emissions. So these cretinous individuals who make these decisions, they don't have to worry about parking. They can go home each night, park on their driveway with their multiple cars and God knows what else they have. They also don't consider the knock-on effect that by putting double yellow lines everywhere, which they have, some delivery companies now get ticketed, and as a result of it, they have now blacklisted where we are. So they won't deliver to where we are anymore. So when people say, you know, I've actually questioned councillors about this, I've said, well, what exactly do you expect people to do about shopping, for example? Get an online delivery. Okay, well, even if I did get an online delivery, which, by the way, I don't want to do, I actually like to physically go and support the shops. I don't want to kill the high street. I actually quite like going to the shops and choosing something myself. Even if I could do that, then there's nowhere for them to park either, because they know if they drop something off, there's no loading. And if they do, if there happens to be a traffic warden around, they'll get ticketed. It's pathetic. That's net zero for you.
Yeah. But also, I mean, it just creates more driving, right?
Of course it does. And actually, just for the record, I don't know one of my neighbours, by the way, who has got rid of their cars. All they're doing now is there is a car park that is just around the corner from where I am, which is currently an abandoned builder's car park. So when the development was being created, there's a builder's car park there. And that's where a lot of people are parking. We've been told now that it's going to close in a few weeks' time. All those cars have got to go somewhere, and they will. People are not going to get rid of their cars. They're just going to park illegally.
No. Well, I mean, it's bullying tactics as well. I like having my car. Right, so that... Oh, we've got to take a break, and then we'll do the rest of the stories. That's all right. Quick break, and Phil and I'll be back.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi, you're with Talk right now. I'm with Petrie, and with me is Phil Dave, and we're going through Tuesday's newspapers. The Times, let's just finish the front page for Tuesday. Millions will have an annual weigh-in to fight obesity. Millions of people will be summoned for an annual weigh-in at GP surgeries under NHS guidelines to tackle obesity. Anyone with common conditions including arthritis, heart failure and diabetes will be weighed and measured under the proposal from NICE, the health watchdog. So what are you going to do? Just shame people?
Well, look, I don't think it's a case of shame. It's hopefully, it would be designed to encourage people to look after themselves. You know that I am a little bit obsessed when it comes to weight myself, and I've had a number of people who have told me over the years, why are you obsessed with weight? You don't need to worry about it. No, it's because I worry about it that I don't need to worry about it, if you see what I mean. So I don't just happen to stay in a reasonably trim shape. It's because I watch very carefully what I eat for a certain amount of time per year.
I watch what I eat, otherwise I miss my mouth.
I watch what I eat because it's cheaper than Netflix. So anyway, I've heard them all.
Oh, God.
Other streaming services are available, but yeah.
So it's about 15 million people in total, including those with learning disabilities or severe mental health problems. It's aimed at preventing weight-related complications developing by ensuring that those who are putting on weight get referred to NHS services offering diet plans or weight loss injections. I mean, it's all very well saying all of this stuff, but there's no capacity in the system.
Well, that's
people
probably
can't get
more
in
the point.
to see a GP for love nor money most of the time, let alone going in for a weigh-in.
When do you think the NHS are going to start taking advantage of in a good way, by the way? I don't mean take a gross advantage. I mean take advantage of the fact that pharmacists are medically trained and start using them. I remember sort of the pharmacy near where I was growing up, and the chap there had most of them do have, had a diagnosis room and had a set of scales and things like that, and you can go for a health checkup there. You know, that's actually already a thing at most
I just had to go
pharmacies.
for one of those health checks at my doctor, but that's one that happens every, I don't know, when you get older. I can't remember which age it was, but you go in.
Whatever age it was, it doesn't apply to you, obviously.
No, obviously not.
Obviously.
And they just measure you and do all that, and they don't say anything though. They just go, okay. I go, is that all right?
I tell you what I miss is those scales with the sliding scale. So you know where you actually used to shuffle the weight along to see how to balance it, to see where the scales balanced out. Of course, now it's all digital. You just stand on and a load of numbers pop up like you're on the set of Countdown or something like that.
Yeah, I have to be weighed when I go into. Everybody does when they go into an MRI machine now.
Pardon?
Yeah.
You have to be weighed before going onto an MRI scanner. Why?
I mean, I saw this little skinny lady, and then there was a really big lady, and then there was me in the middle, and then all getting weighed before, and they would take note. They don't say anything, they don't go or anything, or look at you like, oh, she's not going to fit in there. You know. Yeah.
You ever tried to fit a cucumber through a keyhole?
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, it's. I wouldn't mind if they told me I was too big to go in there, because I hate them.
Well, they are awful.
Checks on sick benefit claimants to increase. Sick and disabled benefit claimants face more frequent assessments in a drive to save £1 billion. But how much is it going to cost to check them all?
I have no idea. It's just going to be. Yeah, I just think that the whole thing is just a mess, and I don't completely understand why successive governments have managed to get it so wrong.
They really have, yeah. But I tell you, it's 7 billion, the cuts. I thought it was it was 5 billion they were talking about last week, and now they're talking about £7 billion worth of savings. There will be some very deep cuts made tomorrow, and they are going to have a very tough job selling that to the electorate, especially with those May the 1st elections coming up.
Well, I think what's going to be even more tough to convince people is the way that we see so many hundreds of people, thousands of people coming over here illegally, week in, week out, who seem to get put up in hotels when we can't seem to house our homeless people, our homeless veterans as well. And yet we apparently do have enough money to do that.
Well, we
have
take
money
that from the foreign aid budget.
Even if we do, we've still got money somewhere that is going in the wrong places.
But I've said before, if you
there are plenty of people
honestly
who think that cut foreign aid.
Yeah, but people always, I always say to me, if you think for a single second that money would go to do any good for the rest of us, forget it. It would just go on some pay rise for some union or other.
No, listen, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they know how to spend the money properly. They don't. That's been more than proven. But what I'm saying is that if you actually had someone who gave a hoot about the population rather than themselves in charge, and again, I'm talking about successive governments here, politicians in general tend to just care about themselves, then I can't help but think that maybe actually if money was properly spent on this country, we wouldn't be in such a rotten mess.
No, I know, but it never will be. It'll always be wasted on some vanity project. The Sun newspaper, don't care. Don't know who they are. Not interested. One Direction. Louis Tomlinson. Oh, gosh, he's changed. 1D Louis dates Strictly Zara. Good for them. I hope they're very happy together.
I'm sorry. I know that the Sun are our friends and colleagues, but
they've
why?
had some really dodgy front pages recently.
Why?
I don't care.
I couldn't care less.
They're a few floors down. I might pop in and see them.
And I'm going to give them a ticking off on the way down because it says here exclusive. So what?
No one cares. They've had some very bizarre front pages the last few weeks, actually, I have to be honest with you. They've obviously changed editorial direction. I'm not sure I understand. Right, The Guardian. D-Day for benefit cuts as Starmer faces growing tide of opposition. This will be very interesting on Tuesday to see what the results of that is. And London to Lviv, how Trump's new world order has shaken Europe. A 1,000-mile train journey shows continent is reeling from US President's shift in attitude to Ukraine war. While Donald Trump talks of the big, beautiful ocean separating the US from the war in Ukraine, 1,000 miles of railway tracks links London, St Pancras to the city of Lviv in western Ukraine. 19-hour trip takes in... I'd love to do that trip.
19 hours on a train, though.
Yeah, as long as there's a restaurant carriage.
Oh,
19
I don't know.
Brussels, a German economic powerhouse of Frankfurt, Vienna, the Austrian capital, before the train rattles into Krakow.
I wouldn't mind if there was like a
Northeast
sort of
Poland.
a decent stop-off en route.
I think that would be a fascinating journey. Anyway, I don't know what the depth of the story is because we can't see into it, but presumably it's people leaving Ukraine. The Daily Mail, Kemi, net zero by 2050, impossible. Oh, and they've got him on the front page. They managed to get him on. The last Battle of Britain pilot dies aged 105. His humbling final interview. Fighter boy John Paddy Hemingway, DFC, joined the RAF in 1938. Good that they got that one.
Ah, we salute you, sir.
Yeah, and he really does look like a Second World War fighter pilot, doesn't he? I mean, he's the archetypal image. That's how I would draw somebody.
Well, I dare say that's when this country was once beautiful and people used to fight for it.
Yeah.
So, not so sure they would now.
No. Right, The Telegraph for Tuesday. Badenoch, net zero. Yeah, got you. Starmer refuses to back down on, this one says, 6 billion benefits cut. Ukrainians flee Kursk. Yeah, this is that train story ahead of Putin talks to agree ceasefire deal. This is supposed to be Trump and Putin talking tomorrow. Tomorrow, Tuesday, during the day sometime. We'll see what they say. Apparently they've already divvied up what's going to be happening, but there you go.
Look, it's very simple. What's happened so far has not worked, so maybe we do need to try a change in direction. I don't want anyone to suffer. I don't want anyone to lose their lives over this.
And I don't want Ukraine to lose their land either.
And
that they fought and died for.
I don't want Ukraine to lose their land either, but I'm fairly sure that one thing we can all agree on is that we want this to stop.
Yeah,
it has to stop.
It has to stop, but it has to be peace with purpose. It has to be peace that can last. It can't just be a sticking plaster, which I fear is what we're going to get
Oh, look, I mean, I've always said that as much as I understand why people don't necessarily approve of or like Trump's methodology, the only thing I can compare it with is that he managed to achieve what I thought was going to be the absolute impossible, which was the Abraham Accords in the Middle East. He's the only president who managed to get various Arab nations to normalise relations with the Israelis. And I certainly didn't think I'd ever see that. And I think it's something that we need to consider. We need to actually recognise that he has achieved some fairly difficult global negotiations before.
But they're not over yet. They're not over yet.
No, I know, but let's see what he does.
The Palestinian people are you know, starving to death still. So let's wait and see what the outcome, the full outcome is before we heap any praise. And look,
that's a very different story. That's
I hope that Putin and Trump do come up with something that's lasting and that doesn't cost Ukraine, because they have fought and died to protect their country. And if these two people decide that they're just going to carve it up for the sake of a quick peace that's not going to last, that would be shocking. So things have got to last. Fabulous picture of Kate, though, as well on the front page. Princess raises a glass for St. I've never seen such a small glass of Guinness in my life.
It's a very dainty glass of Guinness, isn't it? So
do you think she normally does pints?
I would find it very hard to be honest with you. Even seeing her sipping away at a half pint looks quite
awkward.
Odd.
Yeah.
You can see she's sort of raising it to her mouth as if to say, what is this?
Oh, I do like a Guinness.
Oh, I do.
But
Absolutely.
It has to be a pint.
Oh, yes.
It can't be a half pint.
I did St. Patrick's Day celebrations yesterday.
Oh, did you?
Oh, no, hang on a sec. Yesterday. No, Sunday I did them.
Yes, right.
That's it.
Yeah. No, I'm just wearing the shirt.
You are, yes. You've got clover all over.
Yeah, clover all over. Shamrock. Well, it's not shamrock. Well, it can be. If you want it to be shamrock, it can be shamrock.
I thought shamrock has 4 leaves.
Not strictly true.
Oh, is it not? Okay.
No.
I was just asking.
If you have a look at her badge there, it's 3 leaves.
Yeah, okay. No, that's fine. That's taught me a lesson.
Yeah, there you go.
Leave it out.
Let's take a quick break, and Phil and I'll be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. good to have your company. I'm in the company of Phil Dave, talk editor and broadcaster. And we've got to look at the Daily Star. They haven't disappointed. Disney protest as CGI replaces dwarves in new Snow White flick. Very, 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 very grumpy. Protesters say there are a lot of angry little people over the use of CGI dwarves in the new Snow White film. And this is absolutely ludicrous, because it was, first of all, with this Snow White, I think they were going to do Snow White and the 7 magical creatures, right?
Oh, yes, they wanted to get away with it. Also, they wanted to totally wokeify it. It's shocking.
Yeah, and then there was a backlash, and they said, no, you're changing the story too much. You've got to go back with dwarves. But the problem was, my understanding is that they'd already filmed pretty much everything, so they had to CGI out
And that's the
the
problem.
7 magical creatures.
Yes, that's part of the problem.
And CGI in the dwarves.
Yeah, because they couldn't redo every single scene necessary. So if they hadn't have been so stupidly woke in the first place and just done it properly, then there wouldn't have been this issue. You see, this Disney is just one example of how bonkers the world has gone. There are certain Disney films now, and I know Sam, who is pressing the buttons this evening, is a bit more of a Disney expert than I am, but
Yeah, he would be.
there are certain films, right, that now have a trigger warning at the beginning of them. So if you watch them on Disney Plus, things like Aladdin, for example, why does Aladdin need a trigger warning? Why?
I mean,
it's extraordinary.
It is ridiculous.
So it's Aladdin has it. I think the Aristocats has it. It's all of these different.
I love the Aristocats.
The Aristocats is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I can't even say it. Fantastic. But
Brilliant.
All of these different films that people grew up with and loved, Disney is terrified of offending
But there's
somebody.
trigger warnings on books and things like that. You know,
Yeah, but you
that's
haven't
the
had the
only
best thing,
reason that Sam had kids, don't you?
Oh, what's trigger warning?
So you could carry on watching Disney films without people thinking he was being juvenile and childish.
Wouldn't care less about that. I don't have children. I watch them all the time. Don't bother me. But it's, you know, that there is, what is even more ridiculous about it is the hypocrisy, absolute rank hypocrisy around it. Because the warning says, it's a pretty long message, says that this film depicts treatment of certain individuals in a way that is unacceptable now, but we feel it's important to tell these stories so we learn from them. Now, what you're actually saying is that you still want to make money from them, so you don't mind them being available. You don't mind living off of their success that they've had for decades without trigger warnings, but you also want to look as if you're some sort of all-encompassing and wonderful corporation that says to people, oh, there, you know, if you're offended by hurty words, we're so sorry. It's ridiculous. It's pathetic. But anyway,
listen,
and this is the same kind of thing.
But the
I'm afraid.
reviews are in for this movie, and most people say it's really, really good. It's excellent. They're saying it's just got all the magic. And some reviewers that I saw said that this will be the best live-action Disney film yet. So.
But half of it's not live action, it's CGI apparently.
Well, but you know, the reviews, they said it's really, really good. So
you know
go.
that
little girls will love it.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the original version, I believe I'm right in saying, was released in around 1939,
yeah,
something like that.
It's a wonderful film.
It's coming up to 100 years old.
Wow.
I think it's 1936 actually, or something like that. But whatever it is, it's a very old film now.
And really quite remarkable for its
its
time.
day and age is extraordinary.
Can you imagine that
The
long
excitement
ago?
of
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
The first time that anyone had seen cartoons in a feature-length animation.
Extraordinary. One of my favourite actually is the Robin Hood with the fox.
Robin Hood's terrific. Yeah, absolutely love that.
Amazing. Anyway, it's worth going to see apparently.
I think my favourite's Lion King probably.
Oh, that's one of the modern ones.
Yeah, Lion King or Aladdin I quite like. Well, no, if you're talking classic, I like the Aristocats.
Yeah, I like that, and Peter Pan. That was.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah, but yeah, I think the whole Robin Hood was just beautiful, just stunning.
There was only one slight problem I had with Robin Hood. Okay.
What was that?
And you'll never ever.
Oh, in the Jungle Book, best ever.
Yeah, you'll never ever be able to unsee this now. But Little John okay, is a bear.
Yes.
Right? He's a brown bear, so he's a full-size, large creature.
Yeah.
And Clucky, right, who's a chicken, who happens to be Maid Marian's...
handmaiden.
Yes, if you like. She is the same size as Maid Marian, so she's got to be the world's largest chicken because she is the same size as a fox. But not only that, she's not far dissimilar from the size of a bear. So it's a pretty big chicken, and I think that would serve quite a lot of food.
I don't think David Attenborough was there measuring.
No, I don't think so
It's
either.
a cartoon.
I know, but you'll never unsee that now. The chicken's enormous.
And the chicken and the bear and the fox talk, which is, again, not...
But they can do. That's normal.
And here, in the forest, there's an enormous chicken.
In their natural habitat, we see a fully grown chicken.
Let's look at the Daily Express for Tuesday. Felicity Kendall, one of the world's most beautiful women, I think.
I love Felicity
She's
Kendall.
Absolutely stunning. I hope the Beeb can get its good life mojo back.
Oh, from your mouth to God's ears.
Yeah, that was a terrific programme, wasn't it?
I loved it. Do you know why? It's because Penelope Keith's character makes me sound like such a commoner.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, it just, honestly, Margot just has got the most superb speaking voice.
And the best lines, the best comedic lines as well. Daily Express also goes on to talk about a 40 billion tax raid. Disaster is killing growth. Who knew? Rachel Reeves was...
No one saw that coming.
No, was branded a disaster after the economy was downgraded again on Monday. Global experts slashed their growth expectations for the next 2 years and warned of looming price rises from Donald Trump's trade war. It's another humiliation for the Chancellor, days ahead of her crunch spring statement.
Someone needs to tell me why it is that when Kwasi Kwarteng, who of course you may remember was one of the 5 chancellors that we experienced under the last Conservative government.
He was the one with Liz Truss, wasn't he?
He was Liz Truss's Chancellor. Why is it that when he crashed the economy, allegedly, which, by the way, it now turns out wasn't, it was actually because of the bank's intervention, but let's not dwell on that too much. But when he crashed the economy, he was basically forced out of the job. He fell on his sword. Rachel Reeves is doing her level best, it would appear, to destroy growth in this country. And people just graciously accept it.
Yes, because she's doing it by slow-mo.
Right.
It's
graciously accepting it. There's no problem.
They did it overnight, and that was the disaster. But yeah, the slow-mo.
Well, as long as you do it slowly but surely,
used
that's
to it.
all right then.
Yeah. Now, the FT, usually it's been really good, the FT, actually, recently. O'Day, to be banned from city rolls and fined £1.8 million. This is the financial watchdog, is to ban Crispin O'Day from the sector and fine the hedge fund boss £1.8 million for lack of integrity. God, how many people would they have to sack for that?
I was going to say,
fine?
if lack of integrity is a prerequisite to being fired, I can't help but think the city would be empty.
I mean,
it kind of is empty now, actually, to be honest, since the pandemic. It's never really recovered. You ever taken a wander around Bankside and stuff like that since the pandemic? It's bizarre. There's nothing there anymore. I mean, all the buildings are there, but there's no people there.
No, it's really sad, actually.
I think it's horrible.
Yeah. I mean, it was always pretty sad at night, wasn't it, when everybody sort of went home? You'd expect that.
Well, actually, that's where, I mean, there's where one of the former banks, one of the former big banks has turned into this rather amazing restaurant that's sort of carved up into little restaurants. And I don't need to give it a free advert. If you know which one I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But it seems to be an amazing way of repurposing that area and actually admiring the architecture within it and actually sort of making sure that it lives on. And it is. It's superb. You know, that particular restaurant or group of restaurants, it is one heck of an experience. The only problem is the acoustics are diabolical. So, of course, when you go in there, you start having a chat with people, you can't hear a word because you're just picking up conversation all over the place. It's like basically sort of eating in the dome of St Paul's.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't find that much fun. Right, the Metro for Tuesday. As spending axe swings, £17 billion is needed just to fix the roads.
So let's have a whip round.
Yeah. Shock report says highways are failing and demands longer-term spending plans to end the deadly hazard.
Why is this a shock report? I don't think it's a shock at all. There's an expression I want to use that I won't use on radio, but the expression "no kidding, Sherlock" springs to mind.
Yeah, this is obviously there was every year the Asphalt Alliance talks about this. Of course, what's it called? It's the Asphalt something.
Is it
Asphalt Industry Alliance? Yeah.
It's the middle of a road.
Because it happens every year that the Asphalt Alliance, the Industry Alliance, come up with this thing. Because, of course, they haven't, this kind of plays to their favour that they need this money and they want it spent on the roads. But the roads are shocking. Hammersmith and Fulham, where I am, around Shepherd's Bush and around, they are awful. They've been sort of stuck together with little patches of lumpy tarmac.
And do you know what's making them worse? Is the weight of electric vehicles. Yeah. So let's all go over to electric cars, where the roads will be even more under pressure. And in our pursuit of net zero, let's continue to destroy our infrastructure.
Yeah,
what a good idea.
Are really, really shocking. And finally, for Tuesday, the eye, again. Oh, I see, I love this. Again, they're talking about disability. Books, it's good to be bored as a child. I always say that. Children have got to get bored so that they find it within themselves to entertain themselves or read a book.
Yes, but what if that entertainment themselves turns out to be scrawling on walls?
You just paint over it.
Oh, fine, fair enough.
I mean, you've got to be bored. My mum used to say these things to me. She'd go, well, only bored people get bored. Or if I said, I'm bored, she'd go, right, washing up. So I never said it. Phil, Dave, thank you very much indeed. Coming up in the next hour, it is just you and me, and we are going to be talking, because that is what this station is all about. It's about your opportunity to talk back, and in fact this hour is all about you. So I want to hear from you, and we are going to be talking about the state of British dentistry as we learn that 18 million people cannot get an NHS dentist. That's adults and children. That's nearly a third of the population are without NHS dentistry. It is absolutely shocking. And I'd like to hear from you what you've been through with your teeth and what happened. Have you got a dentist? Have you been able to find one? 0344 499 1000. Give me a call.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning to you. This is Talk and this is Petrie, and I'm with you now until 1 o'clock. And I want to talk to you about dentistry. I want to talk to you about what happens when you get a toothache. Now, most people would just be saying, well, I go to the dentist. Do you have a dentist? 18 million people in this country can no longer obtain an NHS dental appointment. You thought it was bad enough trying to get a doctor's appointment, try to get an NHS dental appointment. 18 million. Just think of that, 18 million people without any dental care. And there are millions of others, of course, like me, who pay privately, not because we're posh, not because we can really afford it, but because there are no other options available to us. Certainly in my area, I think there's one NHS dentist. Oh no, I think they're private as well. I was going to say near Shepherd's Bush roundabout. Anyway, a private dentist sounds like a posh thing. It's just a dentist, right? It's just a dentist. They're so expensive. Oh my God, I'm not even joking. They are so expensive. I'm always terrified to go to the dentist, not because I'm scared of my dentist. He's lovely. He's really sweet. He's never even given me any pain. He's a terrific guy. I'm scared because of what it's going to cost me when I walk out. Oh, you need that? Oh yeah, that's a bit loose. You're going to have to do something with that. Have you thought about an implant? That'll be £5,000. Yeah, okay. Let's think about that, shall we, for a few years. £5,000 for a tooth? £5,000. I was once quoted, I have to tell you this story. I went to a dentist, not a very posh one, not in Harley Street or anything, it was in Fulham, in West London. And I said, right, if I wanted all of my teeth done and lovely and white and, you know, all that sort of Hollywood thing, guess how much? I'm not joking, this is the absolute truth, right? The absolute, no word of a lie, truth. This dentist sat down with me and he went, right, in order to do this and correct your bites, I have very buck teeth, you know, do this and even up your bottom teeth that are a bit crookedy, you know, blah, 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 all this stuff they were talking about. 70 grand. 70 grand. 70. I went, I can't afford that. And he said, well, it's just the price of a new car. I said, it's not the price of my new car, which is a second-hand Mini, by the way. 70 grand? If I had 70 grand, I'd give my son a deposit for a flat. I wouldn't spend it on teeth. 70 grand. And because I balked at that, I got a phone call from them the next day, said, look, we'll do it for you for 50 grand. They managed to cut 20 grand off the bill, just like that. Still 50 grand. I went, nah, come on, you've got to be actually kidding. £70,000. I remember telling my best mate that, he just couldn't stop laughing. He just thought it was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. So look, we know that private dentistry is really expensive. NHS dentistry is cheaper, but it still could cost you £300 or £400 if you needed some stuff done. So I want to hear from you. Are you one of the 18 million people who can't get an NHS dentist? And according to this report that I've got in front of me, that people, tooth decay and pain, people are now operating on themselves in order to get out of pain. And if you want antibiotics, you can't get them from the pharmacy because it's dental pain. So I don't know where you get them from. Can your doctor give you antibiotics for dental pain? Probably not. So what do? There is barely anything worse than dental pain. I refuse to admit there is any other pain much greater than dental pain. And it always happens, of course, at the weekend, which happened to my child this weekend. And I spent the whole of Saturday running around trying to get him some pain relief and some antibiotics. So I'd like to hear from you about this. What do we do about NHS dentistry? How do we make this more equitable, more fair? Because dentistry, like so much in this country now, is the preserve of the rich. It has become a rich versus poor situation now, where people who are poor have no teeth or very few teeth or lots of dental pain, and the very rich can have their £70,000 of dentistry and look a little bit American. So how do we deal with this? What has happened to you? How do we fix this problem? What do we do about it? Have you had to go for a long time with dental pain? Have you had to, like Bob Mortimer, the comedian, operate on yourself, sort your own teeth out? How do you do it? Give me a call. I'd love to hear from you on this, because 56% of children, only 56% of children got an appointment last year. That's bad. You've got children, the number one thing about them going to hospital now is to have dental operations, to have teeth removed. Dentists in hospitals are just pulling teeth from little children up to the age of 5 even. They're not brushing their teeth, they're not being taught how to do that, then they're eating horrible food, drinking probably fizzy drinks all the time, and it's rotting their teeth. Why aren't parents taking more responsibility with their children's teeth? Because it's been decided now that schools are being asked to supervise toothbrushing. Schools are taking over yet again from where parents should be doing the job. Why? Why aren't parents looking after their children's teeth? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. It's a very good point here from LC. You bemoan the fact that there are few dentists willing to undertake NHS dental treatments or work for a pittance. Surely, as far as patients are concerned, it's all a question of priorities. Most of your callers would not think twice about spending a large sum of money on a new TV or a fancy foreign holiday, but when it comes to paying for dental treatment so that their teeth look nice and healthy, they start to whinge and whine. And I do have some sympathy with that. But when you're told that an implant will cost £5,000, I mean, who can afford that? Really, realistically. I mean, that's stupid money. It's stupid. Alison, thank you for this. If you need antibiotics from a private dentist, they charge you 30 quid. What, on top of the appointment? Which would be about 70 or 80 quid. 30 quid. Blimey. Let's go to Gemma, who's in Staffordshire. Gemma, a very good morning to you.
Hi, Petrie.
Hi, Gemma. I can barely hear you. Are you all right?
I'm here.
Ah, there you are. You're a bit distant. So the NHS with dentistry, is it any good?
Yes, they're good on the basics, I would say. Good on the basics. So I had chronic gingivitis the other day. I think Prince Harry's got that as well.
All right.
And I went there, and they were really nice, and they saw me straight away, and they said, stop smoking, stop drinking, stop having coffee, stop this and that, and then it'll go away. I was like, brilliant. I said, have you got any medication? They give me antibiotics. They give me, what's it called, mouthwash. And then he said the pièce de résistance, which was, if you want a deep clean, it'll cost you 90 quid.
What?
Yes, 90 quid. And I was like, right, mate, you know, like, we're all supposed to be talking the same benefits language here. I paid into the tax system, Petrie, for over 12 years. And I feel like I might be entitled to a little bit of, like, pushiness at the dentist, considering the fact that I am actually frightened of those men and women that do that job. And he went, yeah, that'll cost you 90 quid. So I said, well, I can't afford 90 quid, and that's not covered under benefits, which is fine with me. Because, you know, if I smoke, if I drink, that's my bad. I'll brush my own teeth. But what I didn't like was the kind of way he spoke to me, which was like, ha, 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 I've caught you out. I'm like, no, you haven't. I feel like saying, I've caught you out because you're giving free dentistry, doctor, driving licenses and to the non, you know, the blob, what they called, the people that come on the boats and that.
Oh, the immigrants that are coming across on that.
Well, I heard it referred to as the blob the other day, and I thought, who are they?
Well, it's a horrible term.
Is that what you London lot are calling them?
I've never heard it before. I've never heard it before. I think it's
sure about that?
Yeah. But the thing is, you know, so cleaning isn't part of NHS dentistry. They don't clean your teeth.
Well, no, they don't, because that's your fault for smoking.
It's fairly judgmental.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I know, but I would have thought that cleaning would be part of the NHS dentistry.
Yeah, well, Keir Starmer is going to start paying for cleaning the teeth of 4-year-olds, but he won't pay for my teeth to be cleaned, even though I taught all of those children to clean their teeth, if you know what I'm saying. You know, he's a hypocrite. There's no other word for this man, right? And I'm a Labour supporter. I think I'm a socialist, right? But it's like drink it, don't think it. It's like I can't swallow this, Petrie. I don't know about you, but I go to bed every night thinking about my father, who taught me up as a socialist, and I don't recognise socialism in his name whatsoever. Like, whatsoever, Petrie. Like, I can't find a single thread of socialism in him. So who is he?
I don't know. I mean, these benefit cuts that are coming, I fear are going to be fairly brutal. They're talking about 6 or 7 billion off payments, particularly. So we're waiting to see the details on that.
But Petrie, you've had Samantha call in earlier to, I think it was Kevin or Jeremy, and you've had people call in and tell you how it is. You've had them call in, and you have to get experts on to say that they're talking sense, and then you throw that at the government people that you get on from all parties, and none of them have got an answer, Petrie.
No. I don't know what the answer is to the exploding benefits bill, but it certainly isn't the way that they're going about it, I don't think. Gemma, great to talk to you. Thank you very much. Francis has written me a message saying, as a dental nurse, I've seen a lot of people not take care of their teeth from a young age, or even have the basic knowledge, such as brushing twice a day. How have they not got that knowledge? I don't understand that. I don't get it. Why wouldn't you know that you have to brush your teeth? I mean, that's the parents not teaching the children then, but their parents didn't teach them either. It doesn't make any sense. Luke is in Rugby. Good morning, Luke.
Good morning, Petrie.
So tell me about your dental. Well, you had private dental work. How much?
Yeah, I've had a few problems with my teeth recently. I'm a long-distance lorry driver, so getting appointments can be quite challenging for me.
Yeah.
I had a broken back tooth. I was in chronic pain. It was infected. It had an open nerve beneath the gum line.
Oh, you poor thing.
Rang through to my local NHS dental practice, which I've used on a number of occasions, but they wouldn't see me as an emergency appointment because I hadn't been to them in a year and a half.
No.
So you had to have been seen by them in the last 12 months before they would take you for an emergency appointment. And I was in absolute chronic pain. So I rang through to my local GP surgery to see if I could get some sort of pain relief. They wouldn't see me because it was dental, so they wouldn't give me any pain relief.
Yeah.
Went to my local out-of-hours clinic. They wouldn't see me and sent me to the general hospital to try and get some pain relief, where I sat there for 15 hours to be seen. In the meantime, was trying to ring through to several different private dental practices, which they didn't have any appointments or I couldn't be seen. Rang through to 111. They gave me a few numbers to call. And it was just an absolute nightmare. In the end, I got through to a private clinic where they were able to see me. They gave me some antibiotics and some pain relief. But then it was still another 4-week wait on a private clinic for that tooth to be pulled out.
No.
So it was just a horrendous experience, really, just to get seen or a tooth pulled out.
I mean, it is totally unacceptable, right? Because I swear that dental pain has got to be the worst pain imaginable. I can't imagine many other things are that unrelentingly painful, right? Those of us have been through it. And it was a very good friend of mine, American, and she didn't understand dental pain. She was like, oh yeah, it's fine. And then she went to she's at the same dentist as me actually, and she had to have a tooth pulled, and she got dry socket, which apparently is just the most. And she suddenly realised what dental pain was. She was like, oh my God, I've never experienced pain like it, ever. She's got 4 kids, never experienced that pain.
Yeah, I don't think you can really understand the levels of pain that you get. The nerves that run through your jaw to your teeth run through several parts of your body, obviously mainly your head. But yeah, the pain that I was experiencing, was chronic pain. It was in my ears, in my head, behind my eyes. It was just, I like I said, in the end I had to go to A&E. They gave me some morphine, thank goodness, which helped. But it was just horrific. And like I said, I was there in A&E for 15 hours. But even trying to get an appointment now privately is still horrendous. People are struggling to get an NHS appointment because the private clinics are now so oversubscribed, and even that is horrendous. I'm in a fortunate position. I'm not. I'm a working man, the same as most families. I've got 4 children, so I've got a lot of money in the bank. But fortunately, I was in a position where I could afford to be able to pay for it privately. Where there's a lot of families out there who can't afford to do that. So what option do they have?
I mean, that is the question, isn't it? Because if you're in that sort of pain, you're in enough pain that you try all of those different avenues to try and get it sorted out and then end up sitting in A&E. I mean, basically just to get antibiotics and pain relief. And I was really annoyed that the pharmacy couldn't give us antibiotics, my son, antibiotics on Saturday because it was dental pain. Yeah. It was quite evident what the issue was. He had an infection. It wasn't difficult to read. You can tell, right? His face was swollen. He was in pain. Any dentist would say, right, we've got to sort the infection out before we can do anything with the teeth. But they wouldn't give antibiotics. Why? Why couldn't you get them from your doctor? It's disgusting.
What an absolute drain on the NHS. And that was the main thing that I was looking for, because previously with that sort of level of pain that I've had, I knew it was an antibiotic job.
It always is. It always is, isn't it? With that sort of pain, you know it. We've been there. We've all had the root canals, whatever.
In most countries across Europe, you can get antibiotics over the counter. You can go and buy them, but for some reason in this country, you cannot buy antibiotics over the counter. And I understand if you've got to have some sort of consultation first, which is absolutely fine, but I can't see why a pharmacist can't do that. It just, in order for me to get those antibiotics, I had to waste time with the receptionist at my local GP. I had to waste time with the staff at the open hours out of clinic. I had to go and waste people's time in A&E for 15 hours just to get hold of some antibiotics, which is absolutely mad.
it's maddening. And I said that to my boy on Saturday. I said, you know, in Spain or and Germany, you can just go and get them because they treat you like an adult. Right, and even if the pharmacist has to say, look, you know, when was the last time you took I can understand they don't want us to overtake these things because of all these resistant bugs and all of that. But still, when you see somebody standing in front of you in obvious pain and say, if it was an earache, I could give you antibiotics, but because it's toothache, I can't, is just ridiculous.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely. We live in that nanny state, you know, where we're all going to be dictated to on how and where and why. You know, and the treatment that we receive, it's all backwards. You know, like you said, it's about time we're all treated like grown-ups, really.
Yeah, I mean, you imagine that would have cut your time being in that much pain down by probably a day. And that is a lot of time to be in that level of pain. I mean, I've been in pain at times with my teeth. I would literally rather cut my own head off than try and cope with it.
At one point, I did have a pair, and honestly speaking, I had a pair of pliers in my hand. I was in that much pain.
I get it. I get it.
I was afraid of doing more damage than good, so luckily I didn't follow through, but I was at that point, you know, is what I'm trying to say. So,
I mean, I've been in so much pain that I didn't care that I was taking, you know, so many paracetamol or Brufen, and that is just awful because you can die. Right, this is serious stuff.
Saying that, when I got to A&E, they asked me had I taken any, medicine, pain relief. When I got that, I said yes, I had been taking paracetamol, and they asked how many, which was over what I should be, you know, taking the recommended amount. And they said, well, which I think I told them at the time was, you know, I was taking 3 paracetamol every 2 or 3 hours, where you're only supposed to take 2 every 4. And they said, well, you've overdosed then, so we've got to get you in for a blood test before we do anything else. Which then I was
paracetamol is dangerous stuff if you take too much of it.
Yeah, I understood the reasons why they were saying it, but like you said, when you're in that much pain,
I don't care. You know, all reason goes out the window. All reason. Because you're in that much pain, you'll do anything. Just quickly, before I have to go, how much did it all end up costing you in the end, the tooth being pulled privately?
So in the end, I got some antibiotics from the A&E, and then when I went to my appointment at the private clinic, they had to prescribe me more antibiotics. So it was £50 for the appointment, and then another £30 for the antibiotics. So it cost me £80 just to get another lot of antibiotics again from them, and then it was £180 for the tooth to be pulled out on another appointment.
That's a lot of money, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, it is a lot of money. You know, and we are living in a time at the moment where there isn't a lot of money going about. Money does have to stretch a bit further. And yeah, so to have that tooth pulled out, you know, with the 80 and the 70, you know, what's that, £250?
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of money. You say you've got 4 kids, you've got a life to pay for. That's a lot just to get a tooth pulled out. Luke, it's been fabulous talking to you. Thank you so much for calling. Do call again. Shocking. All that much pain. I can't bear it. Right, I'm going to take a quick break, but I will be back.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good morning to you. It's Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and we're talking about teeth and trying to get a dentist and what it costs when you go to the dentist and what it costs to go private. School and nursery staff in the most deprived areas of England will be asked now to supervise young children while they brush their teeth. Schemes are already running in some schools, but now dedicated central funding will reach the poorest areas, where children are most at risk of tooth decay. So poverty and tooth decay go hand in hand. Is that to do with a lack of NHS dentists, a lack of will by the parents, bad food, bad hygiene, bad drinking habits? Probably a combination of all. But in richer areas, people go to the dentist, and they will use an NHS dentist. Rich people will use an NHS dentist for their children because that's why they're rich. They don't spend money unless they need to. National supervised toothbrushing programmes have been running in Scotland since 2006 and in Wales since 2009. So it's just English children. And in Northern Ireland, some nursery staff have been supervising toothbrushing since 2016, a funded programme targeting the poorest 20% of areas. The idea, according to experts, is to not replace toothbrushing at home, but I suspect they are. But to help build skills and good habits and confidence. But in England, provision is patchy. It's partly because of logistical problems, but also a lack of staff and dedicated funding. About 1 out of every 4 5-year-olds in England has had tooth decay, and in poorer areas it's 1 in 3. In fact, tooth decay is the most common reason 5 to 9-year-olds in England are admitted to hospital. So people are having... children have to wait over a year in pain for NHS tooth removal. Can you imagine being a little kid and having a toothache and having to wait a year to get that tooth pulled? That's the state of NHS dentistry. And some 6-year-olds have never seen a toothbrush. What has happened? Why is this happening? It is, they say, for every £1 spent on getting children to brush their teeth, £3 in treatment costs will be avoided. And also, you've got to be aware as well that going to the dentist is not just about your teeth. It's also about checking everything in your mouth. So cases of mouth cancer are discovered far too late in people that don't regularly go and see a dentist. So it is really imperative. This is a really necessary part of care in the NHS, although it's neglected completely. It's not even thought of as being necessary. And as LC earlier did say, and I agree with this, is that a lot of people would rather spend money on a holiday or a new television than actually going and seeing a dentist and paying to see a dentist and making sure that their teeth are good. But it is very difficult if there aren't any NHS dentists around, and you literally can't afford that sort of money on a tooth or on your teeth. It's very, very, very expensive to see a private dentist. And it always, makes, because people equate a private dentistry with private healthcare. It's completely different. I've only got a private dentist because I can't find an NHS dentist. I don't have private healthcare. And I will use the NHS for my healthcare. They wouldn't, no insurance company would touch me now. But since my diagnosis, I use the NHS, and I would use the NHS for dental care if there was one, but there isn't one. So you have to go private. It's not like you choose to go private. It's not like you're being posh and you're going, oh, I think I'll go private. It's because there's no choice. And the cost of it, eye-watering. Give me a call. 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate. I am obliged to tell you. Paul is in Hammersmith, or should I say Glamoursmith? Paul.
Hi, Petrie.
You're in my manor, Paul.
In Wendell Park. I've spoke to you before.
Oh, yes.
Occasions, I think.
Literally, I was wandering around there on Sunday. I was in Wendell Park.
Right, yeah, I haven't bumped into you yet.
Well, do come and say hello when you do. I would love that.
Yeah, I will do. The park's usually empty anyway around there, so...
Yeah, no, it is. I normally go when I know everybody's going to be having their Sunday lunch.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I'm not stupid. So listen, since you're a neighbour, where would you go? Where do you go to have your...
I'm lucky enough. I've got an NHS dentist. The only problem is I've got a huge phobia.
Oh.
I think since I got Hashimoto's, I got an autoimmune thing, and I had that for years. And since then, my teeth started to go south, really, the health on them. And so I've had to go. I've been having, like, broken teeth, roots, giving me infections. One was so bad recently, like a canine front tooth, that my whole face swelled up. Do you know what? I'd rather go through the pain of that than go to the dentist. How silly is that?
Wow.
I do it all the time when I go. I don't know why I do it. You know, I know the pain's not... The anticipation of going to the dentist is what puts me off. I overthink it. You know, I've got no problem with needles. I get that done, and I had to have one drained a few weeks ago, but I was gripping the chair. It didn't hurt, but, you know, the anticipation was... Oh, terrible, you know.
I didn't
feel like a man in the chair, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's horrifying if you're scared like that. But the pain is so bad.
The pain is horrendous, and that leads me to tell you what happened after. I started basically I was taking, you know, I take paracetamol and then try and alternate it with ibuprofen, you know, because you don't want to have a big gap between the pain. But the thing is, I never thought about taking ibuprofen on an empty stomach. It just didn't enter my mind. I just took them. And I think I was on antibiotics at the same time, and usually I get stomach issues, cramps with antibiotics. But this time, something happened, and I won't go into details of my toilet scenario, but I had to call an ambulance. I realised there was something wrong.
You'd taken too many Brufen.
I'd taken too many. Well, I don't think I took too many. I was taking them on an empty stomach.
Right.
And I was previously taking them for a back problem, like maybe a month prior to that. And I ended up going to hospital, and they saw me straight away, obviously. My blood pressure was low, and they put me onto IV pretty much there and then and kept me in for 2 nights. And
wow.
You know, I was dehydrated, and I was dying, gasping for water. And they said, look, you can't drink until you've had this thing done. And I think when they realised, like, they put me in a ward, and I said, look, I'm going to eat tonight. I'm really, really hungry. Like, they give me PPI immediately by IV, which I think...
What's PPI?
Is it PPI, proton pump inhibitors,
right,
omeprazole and stuff. And I think that slowed, that's meant to, like, kind of start the healing process. So I think I was there 2 days, then I had an endoscopy, and they said, looks like you've got some ulcers and maybe H. pylori, but they didn't confirm that. So they sent me away, and I was petrified that I would be, looking into the toilet every time I went. But gradually it's got better to where I am now. I've got to go back this Friday now and then have another one to make sure everything's okay.
I mean, and that is damage caused because you didn't go to the dentist.
Yeah, and I would never have thought of that. So whenever people mention ibuprofen now, I'm like, You know, now they give me some coding if I needed to take in between time, which I think that's quite easier on the stomach. But obviously you don't want to overdose on any of these things, do you?
Have you tried hypnotherapy or anything about going to the dentist or getting a friend to take you?
No one really talks about it. I think if I went with a friend or family member, it might make me worse.
Oh, really?
I think I'm better off doing this on my own kind of thing. But the thing is, I went today for a preliminary to go back, because I actually had to go up to the hospital about my teeth. and they tried to take it out last Friday, and they said, "Oh, you won't feel it. We'll numb you up." I said, "Fine, let's do it." No sedation, and I've got no problem with needles, so they started the process, and I knew they was like kind of getting somewhere. Like, you can feel the sensation, but as soon as they went, like they said, the pressure was just too much. They said they think there might be a cyst, and trying to take a tooth out while it's infected is not always a good thing, I don't think, because it's very hard to numb that area. So I was literally in agony in the hospital, and when I've got a phobia and that happened, I'm like, this couldn't get any worse, could it? So I had to go home with more antibiotics. I had to go back there today.
Oh, Paul.
And I know, and they've said, like, we can book you in for a month because I need 3 other teeth out. And I'm like, they did mention general anaesthetic, and I thought, well, I don't really want to go that far. So it looks like it might be IV sedation. But it's, oh my God, I don't know. If I can get through this, I can start trying to fix other things. But
yeah, I mean, it's just...
I'm not in a good place at the minute.
No, my heart breaks for you, because it's so miserable when things like that are happening with your teeth, and you can't eat properly, and you can't... I mean, it's miserable. Paul, I'm so sorry that you're going through that. And I wish you lots of luck. Let me know how it goes, won't you? And like I said, always pop over and say hello to me if I'm there with my dog. It'd be nice to meet you. I've got to take a break. Paul, take care, and I'll be back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. It's Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and I've got loads of messages, so I shall read some of those out for you now. Sean says, dentists should be free on the NHS. You pay your taxes. That's Sean in Glasgow. And dentists did used to be free, but not for very long. At the inception of the NHS in 1948, it was free at the point of need. That ended in 1951 when cash-strapped Attlee first introduced dental charges to help fund the Korean War effort. That's good to know, isn't it? Leading to the Health Minister, Nye Bevan, to resign in protest. Yet today, the overwhelming problem is not so much that patients cannot afford the NHS charges. Many groups, including children, are exempt from payment. And NHS fees are still much lower than private ones, but they cannot access provision at all. So it's just not being able to find a dentist. But Sean, I do agree with you. I think it's a really important branch of medicine, because if you get your teeth done regularly and they're cleaned regularly, it can prevent heart attacks, it can prevent stroke, and all of those things. There's so many things that poor dental health is closely linked to other costly conditions, including dementia, which we know how much that costs the NHS, right? Carol says, so my family and I had been with our local NHS dentist for years, and the practice went over to being private without telling anyone. When my daughter tried to get appointments for herself and children, she was told it only took private patients now. She had to wait around 18 months to get on the books of an NHS dentist in Colchester, excuse me, as there weren't any in our area taking NHS patients anymore. I was lucky as my dentist went private but kept a few NHS patients, and I was one of the lucky ones, and I made sure I don't miss any appointments. My husband had stage 4 cancer and he couldn't get a dentist at all, but he died last April. Carol from Clacton. Sorry, Carol. Yeah, the trouble is that a lot of the NHS deal that was done with dentists is just not very good. So you can't blame the dentists really taking on that work. There's just nothing in it for them, really. Catherine has said in Australia the government provides a $1,000 rebate each financial year for parents to use for their school-age children's dentist appointments. You can go to any dentist and redeem this. I'm astounded to hear the situation in the UK. Are you listening in Australia? That'd be nice. Thank you, Catherine. Sharon said, I had cancer which wrecked my teeth. I pretty much have none left. We have to petition the government for free treatment because of cancer. I had quotes to fix it. The cheapest was £5,000. No teeth now, just gums. I mean, how do you live your life? How do you eat? How do you live your life in that situation? It's horrendous. Right, do you know what? I'm going to take a break because I've got a tickle in my throat. I shall be back in a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, and a good morning to you. It is Petrie here with you for the next 10 minutes. Angie has sent a message saying another area that is woeful in dentistry is a lack of dentists trained in children with special needs. My son has autism, and our dentist said he didn't have enough time to calm his fears. He was even terrified of the chair. So 25 years later, he's never seen one. He does brush his teeth the best he can, given that he has a terrible gag reflexes, but you can see a plaque build up, but no one will see him. That's really sad. Can he go to the hospital maybe? I don't know, because that's going to cause real problems for him. Martin says most dentists went private in the 90s, and rightly so, given the skill it requires and the compensation they now get from private schemes. No incentives to be a full-time NHS dentist, and it screams amateur, especially as their main earning incentive is filling and pulling teeth, whether it's needed or not. That is true. They don't get paid if they don't do any work, do they? Mind you, now the private dentists. The government funds such practices. The elephant in the room is supply and demand. Too much demand, not enough supply. I'll stick to cleaning my teeth regularly and not eating sugary products. I wouldn't trust an NHS dentist now as far as I could chuck them. That's from Martin in Berkshire. This one says, I've had an abscess above my front tooth for 9 weeks now. Ow. I'm buying repeat prescriptions of amoxicillin online. You've got to be so careful with buying drugs online. Why are you buying drugs online? I've been quoted over £1,000 for the root canal that I need. See, this is the problem, isn't it? And then people go and do dangerous things like buying drugs online that they don't know actually that it is amoxicillin from some, you know, dodgy pharmacy across the other side of the world. I mean, I know why you're doing it. It's just, I just worry for you because it's, you know, you don't know what you're taking. But £1,000 for a root canal, again, is absolutely insane. It is madness. Let's talk to Robert now, who is in Hertfordshire. Hello, Robert. How are you?
Hi, Petrie. The last time I went to the dentist, they said that my teeth were all right, but my gums have got to come out. I mean, nobody's got more horror stories than me. But as I was waiting for you, I've just counted my teeth. I've got 10 left.
You're joking?
I know. Well, I'm 72. I mean...
Oh, OK. I've still got all of mine. They're just a bit wonky.
You're only about 28, aren't you?
27, but I will be 28 next year.
No, but I once had 9 teeth out in a day. When I was in my 30s, I had all my wisdom teeth were impacted, and I went to Bart's. Yeah, I know. I had 9 teeth out in one day.
Oh, you're kidding! Yeah. I can't even imagine the horror of that.
Well, you were saying that there's nothing worse than dental pain. You're probably right, but I'll tell you what: kidney stones and gout come a close second.
Oh, do they?
Kidney stones. Oh, kidney stones, yeah. If I'd have had a gun that day, I would have shot myself. No two ways about it. You know, that
But toothache, I mean, it's something about it being in your head, isn't there?
You can do something about it, can't you?
You can't.
You know, you can...
You can't leave it somewhere. Do you know what I mean? It's there. It's right there.
But you know what it is as well? In the modern world, there's 2 types of dentistry. There's the toothache dentistry, and you need a filling. Now there's the cosmetic dentistry, where thanks to all these show-off personalities on the telly, I won't name them, Ryland and Joel Dummett, right? You can't name them, but I can. But you know, and they got ridiculous. Me and my wife crack up when they come on the telly because you couldn't get any more whiter than their teeth. What's the matter with them? You know, and you've got the Love Island mob. So you've got...
Yeah, well, there's the turkey teeth, isn't there? That's why, I mean, the cosmetic dentistry that you're talking about, you know, people want that Essex smile, don't they, whatever it's called, and they go over to Turkey and they come back and then have to get British dentists to fix all the nonsense they've been through.
Yeah, you're right. So people have got the money. You know, so some people have got the money because they've paid thousands and thousands.
Well, they take out loans, most of them.
But you know, there's a dental hospital in central London called Eastman's. I mean, that's national wealth. Maybe they should have a few more of these dental hospitals. You know.
I think that's a really good call, or at least have a dentist at every single A&E.
Well, yeah. I mean, I had a spate. I lost a lot of my teeth in about 2 years. I just kept throwing up abscesses. And instead of going there and letting them save, I went, no, just put it out. Just put it out. You know, I'm one of them. Yeah, I'm one of them people. Like that guy you was talking about, the root canal. Now I'd have the tooth out. I'd have the tooth out.
What, the front tooth? Though it's a front tooth.
Yeah, but I've got dentures, a couple of dentures on the top and a couple of dentures at the bottom. But I went private for my denture. I paid £1,000 for a single denture at the bottom, and you would never ever know that it was a denture.
£1,000, and it's just one tooth.
One tooth. That was private.
£1,000. Mind you, I suppose that's cheaper than the £5,000 for an implant, isn't it?
Well, yeah. You know, but do you know what? I never put my because we don't go anywhere really. I never put my dentures in. I mean, I haven't got a gummy mouth. I've got 10 teeth. I counted my teeth. I've got 10 left.
Are they all at the front? Your 10 teeth?
Well, gaps. My teeth look like a crossword puzzle. If I ain't got me. But you know, my mum and dad were born in the 1930s, and I remember my mum going to the dentist having all her teeth pulled out when she was about 38, and the same as my dad. There was a trend with the generation before me. They just pulled all her teeth out.
What?
Yeah, I remember my mum and my dad, not together, but they had their teeth all pulled out in one day. How about your parents? What was your parents' teeth like?
Good. Oh, my dad's no longer with us, but he's...
You're middle class, though, aren't you? You know what I mean?
No. But we did go to dentists when we were kids. Miller the Killer, he was called, my dentist. And I used to like to ride up and down on the chair. That was the only thing I remember about it. But we didn't eat. We didn't have fizzy drinks or...
Yeah, I think that's...
That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah. I see babies in prams, I'm sure you have as well, with you know, what looks like cola in the bottle. And I mean, I just think that poor kid, even before the teeth comes out, are going to be rotten.
Well, I'll tell you something. You know a baby's tooth, you know a milk tooth, a baby's tooth, when it comes out, I'm saying to your listeners now, put it in a glass of Coke overnight, a milk tooth, and it ain't there in the morning.
Yeah, it's gone. I mean, and I see kids in prams with cola in bottles, and it breaks my heart. That's cruelty. That's just cruelty.
Yeah, we wouldn't give our kids, especially my son, he used to run up the walls. And there's a thing in the paper, weren't there, during the week that slush. No, that's really dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some kid was in a coma or something.
See, we didn't have that. And you're saying about brushing your teeth properly, and that's probably important, but I don't think it is important
as diet.
As diet, yeah.
Yeah. And did you at school? Because I did when I was at school. We had this dentist come to the school, and they gave us these tablets that we would suck on, and they would make all the plaque in your teeth turn red. Did you do that at your school? And then you could see where you were supposed to brush your teeth properly, and we got given a brush and a tube of toothpaste.
No, I'll tell you a quick humorous story that might cheer you up. I remember I was telling you about my dad, who was a professional criminal. Well, yeah. He didn't end his life too well. He had Alzheimer's, and I had to have him sectioned in the end because he was just too dangerous to himself. So he had false teeth, and we went up there to visit him one day. I mean, he was completely nuts. And my wife said, "There's something wrong with your dad." She says, "Charlie, let me look at your mouth. He only had someone else's dentures in. How about that?" That's quality, isn't it?
I love that. Robert, you always cheer me up. Thank you so much. I wonder who did it deliberately or just for a bit of fun. Les, final word goes to you. Tell me about this taking all the teeth out.
Yeah, my father, at the age of 56, he had toothache, and he went to, we're at a dentist, they called him Sweeney Tom. He went up, and he had toothache, and he said, "Take all my teeth out." So he took all his teeth out, and my mother was sort of bringing him back home, and he collapsed in the street because he had so much loss of blood. Anyway, a police officer came along, and they said he thought he'd been attacked. Anyway, he was in hospital for 2 weeks. But my father always said to me, he says, "Listen, the best teeth you can have is no teeth at all. Because if you've got dentures, you can always take him out and give him a good scrub.
God, that is horrific. So he had toothache once. He had a toothache, and he said, "Oh, just take them all out."
And he had them taken all out.
That seems a little extreme.
I know, yeah. Well, yeah, but the thing is, I've had all my teeth taken out as well.
Have you?
I'm 66 now.
And for the same reason, you just didn't want to have the pain or the worry or...
Well, yes, the pain, but given again, when I put my dentures in, I've got a full set of teeth. So...
But how do they stick in your mouth?
Sorry?
How do they stick in your mouth? The dentures?
It's Fixident.
And that works, does it?
Yeah, Fixident.
And it works? You can actually eat an apple or...
Yeah, I can eat an apple, can eat a pear, can eat a meal, can eat a steak, can eat everything, you know what I mean? And when I put them in, and I've got the Fixident in, I can, you know, they stay in for at least 2-3 days.
No.
Before they start coming away, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Do they not hurt?
No.
When they rub on your gums?
No, not at all.
I had no idea that stuff was that good, that sticky stuff.
Exactly. And when I smile, and